Well, hello, all you crazy, crazy kids out there in internet land. Happy Insurrection Day, everyone. We did it. We made it through a whole year. I don't even know what's going on today because I've been sitting in the tattoo chair all afternoon. You can see, just uncovered it right before. The middle's not done yet. The tattoo artist might be dropping by, so you guys can say hi to him, but it's looking sick. Isn't it looking sick? You can see a better picture of it in my locals, but this one was a little bit painful, I'm not gonna lie. But we're making some progress. But guys, welcome to Insurrection Day Watch Party live on my channel. We are going to be watching Joy Reid tonight. We may even spill over into Chris Hayes. We may even go so far as to watch Rachel Maddow. I have a beer. I have chips and salsa if I need sustenance because I haven't really eaten today. So I'm sorry, I just might have to eat on the stream. We're going to have to see how it goes. But we're going to be joined by some special guests. We're going to be joined by the owner of bringammo.com. I think Seth is going to pop in at some point. We might be joined by some other folks. And in about 15 minutes, we are going to start with Insurrection Day Watch Party. But guys, I got some interesting news. Do you guys want to know what my interesting news is before we get started? Okay, Justin O'Donnell from the Libertarians might pop in as well. But you guys want to know what my interesting news is that I got right before I started? So the police stopped by my house while I was off getting my tattoo. Yes, the police always stop by my house when I'm gone, and Victor's the only one here. And an interesting thing happened. You guys know how we've been going to that school board meeting to protest the school boards being absolute tyrants? Well, the school board didn't like that I was exercising my First Amendment rights at this school board meeting, and they literally stopped by the house. Oh, I shouldn't show that. It's got my address on it. They literally stopped by the house to issue me a no trespass order. You can see this no trespass order in locals. You can see it on Twitter. I just want to read it before my special guests start coming on. This is amazing. Okay, so I have been banned from attending further school board meetings. Don't think I'm not going to be talking more about this when I'm not streaming Insurrection Day Watch Party. So I've been banned from attending further school board meetings. And here's what it says. The reason for this action is threatening comments you directed at the school board. In particular, during a recent meeting of the school board, you were heard shouting, "We know where you live." The threatening statement, your conduct on social media, clutching their pearls, and your use of association with certain hashtags on social media. So I've been given a no trespass order from a school board meeting based on my use of hashtags. Let's let that sink in. I want to welcome Justin O'Donnell to the stream. Hey, Justin, what's going on?
Hashtags did nothing wrong.
They've even blamed me for using a hashtag that I didn't even use. I never used the school board tyrants hashtag.
Oh, I think I did.
Yeah, so you got me banned from the school board meeting. Great. Justin, who are you and why are you here? Want to introduce yourself to the crowd?
I'm Justin O'Donnell, former candidate for U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate in New Hampshire as a Libertarian, former member of the Libertarian National Committee. I've never actually held a role in LPNH. I've just been like a shitposter and frontline activist for the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, and I tend to piss people off.
You do a good job of it.
I know. I actually had somebody complaining to me about you earlier today. It was hilarious. They're like, really? She's making us all look bad. I'm like, whatever.
What did I do? I always get blamed for other things other people do. I wasn't even the first one to yell, "We know where you live" at the school board meeting. It was Jeremy.
They're still hung up on your whole the Jews chose their fate comment.
I never said the Jews chose their fate. I said everyone chooses their fate before they're born.
Yeah. So people are still hung up on that.
I was incredibly inclusive in that statement. I said everyone chooses their fate before they're born, to include people who choose to be born Jewish.
Right.
God damn it. Anyway, I hear you have a stream going on tonight as well. Do you want to plug your stream before we get started?
Yeah, starting at 8 p.m. It's an Odyssey exclusive because I'm still currently suspended from YouTube streaming. Mm-hmm. I'm suspended from YouTube for talking about January 6th with somebody, so it's probably a good thing that stream is an Odyssey exclusive, because it would probably just get my whole channel nuked.
Yeah, probably a good idea. And you're going to be streaming with Bill, I think. And who else are you going to be streaming with?
Bill, Masha, Rothbardian on Twitter, for those of you who follow the LP drama. And whoever else shows up, open stream. Ashton Birdie's going to hop on for a bit. Reid Coverdale's going to hop on for a bit. And it's just going to be out there. We're going to go till midnight and kind of just shitpost and have a good time with it.
You guys are going above and beyond. I don't even know if I'm going to make it to 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I made a highlight reel for the glorious events of a year ago today that we'll be discussing. So, again, I probably would have gotten in trouble for the copyright on that one. So,
yeah, I'm like just slightly concerned about getting in trouble for copyright for streaming MSNBC, but they didn't give me in trouble last time, so I figured try it again.
You're allowed to do reaction commentary without violating their copyright.
Well, this is what I thought, so I feel like this is fair use.
Yeah. What I do was not so much reaction commentary. I got in trouble. The first time I ever got a copyright strike was I made a montage for an anti-war episode I did with Adam Kakesh and Scott Horton and Magnus Panvidya, and I used actual footage from 9/11.
Okay.
In the montage, and Sky News and the BBC filed copyright claims against me.
Those fuckers.
Yeah.
How dare they?
And then the next time I got one, I wasn't surprised because I used the Star Wars theme, and Disney, the mouse goes after everybody.
Yeah, that'll get you. That'll get you. I find that so anytime I've gotten a copyright strike from it's been one of those automatically detected things from ABC or something, and they never I always appeal it and I always win. So they never respond.
The montage, I made a montage the other night of just a whole bunch of footage from January 6th set to Hollywood Undead's We Are Young, which is, if you're not familiar with the song, it's a harder rap song, but the lyrics are about how the government's awful and it's time for people to stand up and fight against the government and how it's prior generations' fault that the world is such a mess, and it's time for people to actually fight for a change. And I'm like, that's a perfectly fitting song, and it's muted in 71 countries.
Wow. Man, causing trouble wherever you go. So you're going to stick around and watch some MSNBC with me?
Oh, absolutely. Why not? I've got until 8 o'clock, so...
All right, let's read the rest of this year trespass letter that I got. You can give me your expert comment. I've never gotten a no trespass. I've been like a goody two shoes all my life. I started fighting back against schools. I just saw it on your Getter post,
and the first thing that stuck out to me was that the union's logo is bigger than the school district in the letterhead.
Oh, isn't that funny? I hadn't even noticed that. Okay, so I have been banned for using hashtags on social media, including school board tyrants, which I've never actually used. Tyrants have addresses and make tyrants afraid again, as they are designed and intended to menace and intimidate the school board during their meetings. Employees of the district are required to attend these meetings as part of their job. Government employees. School board members must conduct the business of the district at these meetings, and members of the public have a right to attend these meetings, all in an environment that is free from threats against their personal safety and security. Your comments and conduct at school board meetings in conjunction with your social media activities serves no legitimate purpose other than to disrupt the school board meeting by causing the board and district employees to fear for their personal safety. I think that is a very legitimate purpose.
I would too as well. I mean, making tyrants afraid is a legitimate purpose in and of itself to me. But it does go on to say that you're not a taxpayer or a resident of New Hampshire.
I am a resident of New Hampshire. I am provably a resident of New Hampshire.
And even if you're not a taxpayer in the Timberlane school district, with New Hampshire's redistribution scheme, the way the money goes to the state and the counties to be redistributed to the school districts, you do have a financial interest in the school district.
So what should I do about this, Justin? I have no idea. I have no experience with this. What should I do next?
Violate it. Here's the thing: is what are you willing to do?
Am I willing to get arrested to go to the school board meeting? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe. I've never been arrested before. It would be a new experience.
Really?
I've never been arrested. I was a Democrat, man, up until 2 years ago.
Man, I've been arrested. Only about half the times I've been arrested have been politically.
I never did anything fun. I was a goody two-shoes.
God, I got maced by cops and got in a fist fight with the Boston cop like 3 years ago at a Democrat protest.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I got tear gassed on January 6th at the Capitol.
You can't admit to that one, though.
I can admit to it. I've already been interviewed by the FBI. They've already cleared me.
So YouTube took down one of my videos last week from months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the video had been up for months, and it was an interview with Sean Weitzman, who's an independent journalist who was covering January 6th. And he was there just recording and reporting and streaming in real time. And he cooperated with the FBI. He did everything right. He turned over all his footage. He did the interviews. He testified. And then they charged him.
Okay. Jesus.
So.
Well, my lawyer seems to think that it's fine. So for me to talk about being there January 6th. So we're going to go with
Does
that.
your lawyer think it's fine if you go to the next school board meeting, though?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I've only had about half an hour to sit with this information.
Because this isn't a restraining order. This is just a letter from the union.
Yeah. I'm annoyed that they said I didn't live in New Hampshire. There are 2 lies in this no trespass order, at least. I'll have to further analyze it.
They must have confused you with Josh.
Well, I think that's probably true, but they also, you know what's funny? So, do you know that article that came out about, did you see this like Timberlane Tattler thing?
No.
So, there is an entire article about this. Hang on, I'll show you. I covered it on my stream yesterday. It's amazing. This person put up a random website called the Timberlane Tattler where they documented our school board activities. Look at this. This is a whole long article. And I did it on my channel. I reviewed it on my channel yesterday, where they're like, these are the people responsible for going to the school board meeting. But you know what's funny is they spelled my maiden name wrong in the article. And I was very impressed that they found out my maiden name. But my maiden name is also spelled incorrectly on this letter. So I'm going to bet it came from the same person.
And
we don't know who this Timberlane Tattler thing is.
Oh, we can find out.
Oh, we definitely should. We definitely should. See, I didn't even really care about this that much until they sent me a no trespass order. Now I'm like, you motherfuckers. I didn't even know your addresses, and now I'm damn well going to find out what your addresses are.
Well, it's funny. So, like, I sell a shirt on my website, which is a portrait of John Wilkes Booth with the quote that says, "You miss 100% of the shots you never take." I think that'd be perfect for somebody to wear to the next school board meeting.
I suspect that many things will be happening at the next school board meeting. I suspect that. Well, we're about 2 minutes out from the stream, so I'm going to bring up MSNBC. We're going to do a little sound check. Make sure it's working. It's not okay. Can everyone hear the sound for that?
It's time to make a stand. Start a new day with Trelegy.
Let me know if you guys can hear the sound for that in the chat.
No
if you can hear it.
COPD medicine has the power.
Just on a commercial right now, so we'll mute it. But let me know if you guys can hear the sound. Joy Reid's going to start any minute. Let's see. Naruto said, next time someone criticizes you, you need to take the AOC approach. You just want to date me. The Timberland School Board just wants to date me, obviously. That's obviously what happened. Okay, they say the sound is working. Justin,
how do I spell that website? Timberlane Tattler?
The Timber Tattler. So I'll private message you on
Timber Tattler.
Yeah. Oh, why isn't it copying?
Found it.
Got it?
I think. Oh yeah.
Got it? Yeah, it's good. It's good. When was the last time you watched Joy Reid, Justin?
I don't watch TV.
Oh, this is going to be an adventure for you then.
So I own a TV. I have a TV on the wall behind me. And I realized the other night that, like, I bought that TV when I moved into this apartment 2 years ago, and I still haven't turned it on.
I don't think I rarely watch my TV. On the weekends I do, but Joy Reid has not been on my TV in a while. I think we're about to get started. American Radical. God. All right, in the chat, who's ready for some Joy Reid? I'm up on YouTube. I'm up on Rockfin. I'm up on Odyssey. We're about to get ready to go. And guys, just as a reminder, you can join my locals community and see some of my exclusive January 6th videos that I've never shared. Insurrection in America. Oh, look at this.
Right now, on this anniversary, here's a year ago tonight, how it looked then.
That's pretty
As we
sick,
marked
actually.
this time for
I'd
the
already
nation,
left
it was
by
an
that point.
attack on the Congress, on the House.
That looks
Today,
awesome.
Here is what
It
the
does look
Speaker of the
awesome.
House said about the riot.
It breaks your heart. It's as if somebody in the White House dropped a bomb on the Congress of the United States.
Oh, for crying
That
out
these
loud.
people, and you know,
These people with such
they believe the
indignation.
President of the United States. I have great respect for that office, more respect than the previous holder of that office.
That's the word from the Speaker.
Donald
Our
Trump
special
had
coverage
exactly
continues
as much
now on
respect for the
MSNBC
office of
with
the
readout.
presidency as it
Joy Reid.
deserved.
Exactly. Precisely. Lightning, fire, an eagle going across the screen.
Good evening, everyone. We begin the readout tonight exactly 1 year after insurrectionists stormed our nation's capital in an unprecedented attack on our democracy, incited by the disgraced former president. A full year later, the images aren't any easier to watch, but they're an important reminder of how close we came to losing our democracy and how fragile that democracy remains. After their dear leader told them to head to the Capitol, a MAGA mob descended on the Hill, violently clashing with police, smashing through windows. They swarmed the Capitol asking, "Where are they counting the votes?" and "Where are you, Nancy?" It's a testament to the Capitol Police that they didn't reach their targets. We saw Officer Eugene Goodman.
Capitol Police was standing
heroically
around
divert
doing
the
nothing,
mob.
please.
But 4 police officers died following the events of that day, and Speaker Nancy Pelosi held a moment of
Lie,
silence
fact
for them
check, false.
as part of a day of remembrance on the Hill today. The only Republican member of the House who attended was Liz Cheney, who brought her
Good.
father, the former Vice President Dick Cheney. Her Republican
Fucking
colleague
Dick
on the
Cheney's
Select Committee,
remarks
Adam
today.
Kinzinger, said that he wished he could be there, but his wife is about to have a baby.
Liz Cheney
spent the
needs
day
to go on a
sharing
hunting trip with her
testimonials of their
father.
experiences and later holding a prayer vigil on the steps of the Capitol. House members also got together to serve food to Capitol
Thank you,
police
Naruto.
officers,
I appreciate
as well
it.
as to Hill staffers, thanking them for their service. This morning, President Biden delivered one of the most important speeches of his presidency. He had some strong words for the former president, though he never mentioned him by name.
Unity.
For the first time in our history, a president had not just lost an election, he tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. The former president of the United States of America has created and spread a web of lies about the 2020 election. He's done so because he values power over principle,
He's like Voldemort.
because he sees his own interest
Here's the thing,
as
like,
more important than his
to
country's
say
interest,
this was
than
Biden's
America's
most
interest.
important speech of
And
his
because his
career
bruised ego
Mhm.
is absolutely
matters
asinine
more to
because
him
just
than
a
our
few months
democracy or
ago,
our Constitution.
Biden gave what
Those
I
who
consider
stormed
the
this
most
Capitol,
important speech a president
those who
has given in my
instigated and
lifetime
incited,
when he announced a withdrawal
those
from
who called
Afghanistan.
on them
And the
Oh, yeah.
way he did it, like,
helped
it had me
stagnate
rooting
the
for
throat of
Biden.
America.
And then he
Biden
totally
then
fucked
vowed
that
to
up.
Fight
Yeah.
the enemies of democracy that still pose a threat to this country.
I did not seek this fight brought to this Capitol 1 year ago today, but I will not shrink from it either.
I will use
will
it to try to
stand
get
in
my
this
voting
breach.
rights bill passed.
I will defend this nation, and I will allow no one to place
To
a
fortify
dagger
all
at the
future
throat of
elections.
democracy.
Predictably, the former president responded with his usual desperate pleas for attention. But we're not going to give him any airtime tonight. This comes as we are still learning more about what exactly he was doing during the hours.
Do you know
in which
what
he
Joy Reid's
refused
show was
to
about the
stop
night of the
the
Jesse
insurrection.
Smollett verdict came out?
No.
It was all about Trump, but they're not giving Trump any airtime tonight. But she didn't talk about that verdict at all. She talked about Trump the entire show.
Look at all of the people fighting for me, hitting rewind, watching it again. That's what I know.
With me now, Congressman Pete Aguilar of California, member of the Select Committee to investigate January 6th. Malcolm Nance, MSNBC counterterrorism and intelligence analyst. And Stuart Stevens, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. And thank you all for being here. And, you know, this is a day, and I'm going to start with you, Congressman Aguilar, that is unforgettable to me because I can remember every moment of that day, really. and thinking to myself, my God, I hope that these marauding masses of MAGA supporters don't find the Black History Museum and ransack it. That was the first thing that struck me as I saw them, heading toward the Capitol to bash their way in.
The favorite bit of coverage I've seen from January 6th was Shoe One Head. She was there just doing like man of the street interviews, and like on one of her videos, she's walking with her camera person and she's complaining about the architecture. She's like, look at all this beautiful architecture. It's gorgeous. Classical architecture, and then there's that just ugly.
It's the Black History Museum.
And her friend's like, that's the Black History Museum. Like, oh my God, cut this out.
We had a lot of family members and loved ones reaching out, asking us how we were doing, what was going on, especially once the speaker was pulled from the rostrum, and some of the other senior members of leadership on both sides of the aisle were pulled. But I think what sticks out for me was, Jamie Raskin, who had just buried his son 24 hours before that day, was right in front of me. And Jamie and I remember putting a card in his pocket, a condolence letter from my wife and I, but just how stoic he looked at what was happening, and that he needed help when we were told to get our gas masks ready. I had to give him mine and open up his gas mask and make sure that he knew how to use it. So those are some of the experiences and some of the things that I remember. But it was a dark day.
Malcolm, you and I, we've known each other for quite a while, my friend. We've been through a lot. And we were together at the very start of the Trump era. And a lot of the predictions that you made, people at the time thought were outlandish and impossible. And I can recall you saying to me, this is going to lead to insurrection. Where he's going with these grievances that were based in ethno-nationalism and rage that had to do with the changing nature of America. This was going in a direction that had insurrection potentially at its end. And then when it happened, you and I, we've texted a lot. It was sort of like you didn't want to say, I told you so.
How many people have been charged with insurrection?
This is where you saw it going for a very long time. I want to play for
I think everyone was charged with criminal trespass,
I just want to play our wonderful producers here at the Readout put together a quick montage.
But not insurrection.
This isn't the way Trump wants to be seen today.
Or terrorism,
this is
or
the
any
way he's
things.
going to be seen today. Take a look.
In many cases, they're waving the American flag, and they love our country. Some of them went in and they're hugging and kissing the police and the guards. They had great relationships. The crowd was unbelievable, and I mentioned the word love. The love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, the people are very angry. You're saying hang because it's common sense, Jim. It's common sense. If you know a vote is fraudulent, right? Yeah. How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress? We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel.
I mean, the thing of it is even if Trump had said something, no one there would have known because there was no cell coverage. Like there was no way for anyone there to have known.
Right, and the tweet that got him kicked off, that everyone blames for starting it, it was like, be peaceful, go home, it's all over.
Yeah.
I've spent over 3 decades watching all the third world dictators, warlords, potentates carry out activities like this. This is not people power. This was an attempt to overthrow the government of the United States. Let me tell you, I get a little caught up when I watch videos like that. I'm from Philadelphia. I was born and raised under the Liberty Bell in Independence Hall. I am deeply offended by this. I spent my entire life defending this nation against people that would do harm. My family has served every day since April 1864 to defend this country. And we had a president of the United States, as we're finding out now, engineer a coup d'etat. It wasn't spontaneous. God. It was very well planned. And you might recall I was on Real Time with Bill Maher.
It started while Trump was still speaking. Per the New York Times, it started while Trump was still speaking. How could it have been planned? Well, it was planned, but not by Trump supporters.
Here's the crazy thing to me is like, as a political analyst and as a corporate strategist and somebody who deals with like long-term planning for intricate corporate moves on a daily basis and doing like underwriting, the notion that Trump planned anything is asinine.
Oh, yeah.
It's an insult to people who plan for a living.
Yeah. Yeah. They planned it so much that no one brought their guns and everyone stayed within the velvet ropes when they went into the Capitol and didn't know what the hell to do.
Yeah. They were like a dog chasing a car. They had an idea of what they wanted to do, and then they got it and had no clue what to do with it.
No clue.
Here he is talking about the mob and what the president of the United States failed to do that day. Here's President Biden.
We saw with our own eyes. Rioters menaced these halls, threatening the life of the Speaker of the House.
Oh, Seth is here.
Literally erecting gallows to hang the Vice President of the
Hang on.
United States of America.
Welcoming Seth Weathers to the stream. How's it going, Seth?
It's good. I've missed so far. We had a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, we're just getting into it. Joy Reid's on.
Excellent.
Where were you on Insurrection Day, Seth?
I was not insurrecting, unfortunately. I was actually in Georgia, here in Georgia at the time.
Well, that's too bad. Next time you'll have to go.
So I was actually trying to get kicked off of Twitter that day. After Trump got kicked off of Twitter, I just took to Twitter. I'm like, I want to know where the line actually is, like, and see what I can get away with. And so, like, I'm responding to people saying, like, people are live tweeting what they're doing. I'm like, cool. Like, here's how you get, like, take a right at the end of the hall to get to the congressional offices. The speaker's office is at the end of the hall. Go get her. Take hostages. Like, instructing people to incite violence and nothing.
Did you get interviewed by the FBI?
No.
God damn it. It's always me.
So my neighbor, like, legit has had the FBI show up in my neighborhood. I watched her ring doorbell because she was never in the Capitol. She was there. Seen the photos and stuff. They took to the point they came to her house, and it was a ridiculous interview. I mean, these clowns, it's unbelievable. Are we allowed to curse on this?
Yes, you can curse. Yes,
okay,
do it. Do it.
Never.
You just cannot imply that there was fraud in the election.
Yeah. And don't talk about vaccines. No vaccine talk.
You're not going to the shirt.
Oh, I love that shirt. I wear that shirt all the time.
Or mine.
This is my neighbor. So this is literally a soccer mom, homeschool mom at that. Anyway, here in Johns Creek, Georgia, they went up there. She was outside the Capitol, took some photos. They showed up at her house. They were pretty aggressive. They're acting like fucking idiots. They went so far as, and she just pretty much said, contact my lawyer. They followed her at a different day and showed up at a tennis match she had at a neighborhood down the street. And we're just sitting in the fucking parking lot, like, hey, I'm not gonna say her name. Like, we want to talk to you a minute. Like, come over here. And she's like, what the fuck? Call my lawyer. It's some really wild stuff. It was when seeing and hearing it like that close to you, you hear people say, oh, they were kind of following me. You never know who's full of shit and who's telling the truth. I know her, and it's like, holy shit, that's really wild.
It's insane. Well, I got interviewed by the FBI. They showed up at my house. I was out of town at the time. But I called them and I was like, what do you want? And they were like, well, someone on Twitter reported you. And I was like, oh, great. You're following up on tweets now. Whatever. Let's tune in.
Hey, as long as if the German government had the ability to follow up on our tweets, I'd be fucked.
Oh, for real, right? I get German Twitter reports like all the time.
The best.
It's
all right,
wild.
Let's see what they're saying.
That's how it strikes me. And I think you hit it right. They talk about ballots and integrity, but those are the same ballots that elected them. But I think what's more important now is just the deafening silence from House Republican leadership when it comes to today, the January 6th anniversary. It's crickets. You don't hear anything from them. As you mentioned at the top, you have Congresswoman Cheney, the vice chair of our committee, there with the vice president. But they would choose not to. Other House Republicans would choose just to avoid the conversation rather than committing to democracy, which is what we should do.
Yeah. How much trouble are we? I mean, I think we're in a lot of trouble. We don't have much more time, but unfortunately, we'll just have to continue this conversation on another day. So I want to thank Congressman Pete Aguilar, Malcolm Nance, Stuart Stevens, thank you all very much. Happy New Year. We have much more ahead on the anniversary of January 6th. Remember this video of Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal as the MAGA mob began forcing their way into the House chamber? She joins me next, along with Representatives Ayanna Pressley and Ruben Gallego, to talk about what they and their staff members endured. Plus, Sherilyn Ifill and Ibram Kendi join me live with their thoughts on
We're going to get Ibram Kendi tonight. Holy shit.
Voting rights.
Excellent.
And the questions it raises about race, privilege, and national security. Stay with us.
It's about race.
Wow. Everything's about race. Everything's about race. Well, while we're on a commercial break, I want to bring up Seth's website, which is one of my favorite websites on the entire internet.
Oh, I like that.
And it is, dude. I was like buying your stuff before, like,
before it was cool.
Before it was cool. That free Kyle t-shirt was my first one, but
before it was banned. Literally.
Before it was banned, it was. I still love it. I wore it proudly on the day that he got acquitted, so I was pretty pleased about that. But this is bringammo.com. What cool stuff do you have on bringammo.com right now, Seth?
We sold the shit out of some Let's Go Brandon wrapping paper over the Christmas, so that was what kept us really busy just recently. But a lot of Let's Go Brandon stuff. So it's been It's been wild. We have a local printer that handled that for us, and they were round the clock.
It was some good wrapping paper too. Like I got Yeah. You sent me some. It's really good wrapping paper. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
We had fun with it. You go to New. That's probably most popular. Probably a good one.
Either way. Let's see what we got here. We got the Let's Go Brandon stuff.
I should have my fleece up here if it gets cold tonight.
Let's see. Got some ornaments. Fauci lied dog style. Oh, I didn't even know about that one.
Oh, that was fun.
You guys sent me one of these big Declaration of Independence ones too. That's pretty rad. I've got it hanging up on my wall over here.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I have behind me.
Yeah. Guys, just so you know, you can always get 10% off your entire order at bringammo.com just by using my first name in the promo code. And you guys are launching like new stuff all the time. You got all this special edition stuff. Honestly, this is the truth, guys. I'm not just shilling. Like, I only shill for stuff that I actually like, and I love their stuff. I get so many compliments. Let's see. Let's go to the most popular one because, like,
yeah, we've not done much after Christmas. We're about to launch new stuff at the 1st of February.
Well, you got so much stuff already. Like this Fauci shirt with the clown nose is one of my favorite ones to wear.
That is wild to wear in public. So many people stop you. Like my kids have gotten to wear the Fauci lied shirt actually.
Oh, I get so many compliments on the Fauci lied shirt.
My kids to the point when they'll see me like over the summer, we go up to the lake and stuff, and they would see me wear one of those shirts, and they're like, "Oh, Dad, no, don't do that." And it was not from like people being upset. They just knew like all these people were gonna come up and talk to me and take time away from them. So it literally got to it was kind of funny, but you find out where people's thoughts are. But obviously, a lot of people are afraid to do something about their thoughts, but they all have a disagreement with it.
Well, it's actually really it gives me hope when I wear one of your shirts out, and then I get so many compliments on it because it's like, okay, people really do see. It's not just me. I'm not crazy.
Part of why I even got into doing this, I've worked in elections a long time because that's we wanted to have an effect on things politically. But we're trying to embolden people to stand up and say something. I mean, technically to vote, but to, embolden people to say, hey, this is fucking stupid, to have just the boldness to do that. And I actually see that in public a little bit because it will kind of get people riled up like, oh, someone else actually believes this. You're being told every day, you're the only one that's just an idiot that, thinks these things. Mm-hmm. And so it does actually, you can literally see people get confidence and encouragement about it, just seeing other people wear it. So it's fun to do.
No, it's a lot of fun. You have some of the best, most base stuff on the internet.
Well, it's funny. So Shopify, they banned the original Kyle shirt. Did I tell you what happened after that? After he was acquitted?
What happened?
Oh, this is wild. So he was acquitted, obviously. So we launched a new shirt. It was the same photo, but we just, instead of saying free Kyle, all we put on there was Patriot.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to say? A person, the word Patriot.
They let me put up on my store, I have a shirt that it was a Gadsden flag, except instead of the snake, it's Kyle sitting down at the high ready. And they originally rejected it because it said, "Don't tread on me." And they said that's trademarked, that somebody has trademarked the saying "Don't tread on me." I looked at it. It's a freaking cigar company.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And they aggressively pursue it. But then I changed it so it just says "Don't tread on Kyle," and that one went through fine.
Wow.
Man.
What's Nancy up to?
Yeah, let's see. She's coming back here.
as we reflect today on the one-year anniversary of the insurrection. For many who were inside the Capitol that day, the frightening memories remain extraordinarily painful.
And then there was a sound I will never forget. The sound of pounding on the door like a battering ram. Most haunting sound I ever heard, and I will never forget.
I called my wife, and it wasn't until I heard her voice that I thought, wow, this is like one of those calls.
We all were wondering if we would die in that moment. I was 15 feet at most from the front of that gallery to the door.
So this is a moment where we as the Senate can thank Officer Goodman for his bravery in protecting the Senate.
But he wasn't wearing his mask.
Protecting our democracy.
Those folks when you came down this hall? No, I did not. I was very fortunate indeed that Officer Goodman was there to get me in the right direction.
Oh God!
Three
Can
Democratic
you
representatives were
can you
all present during
imagine
the
what would have happened if Mitt Romney had ran into the crowd?
Oh,
Massachusetts. Thank you all for being here. And
they wouldn't have been able to call it a
Congresswoman
Republican
John
crowd
Hall.
anymore if they killed a Republican.
You actually had gone through knee replacement surgery, just weeks before, a couple of weeks before this insurrection. So you were not actually, necessarily physically capable of running as you needed to run. I've heard this story of you having to rely on Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill just to get you out of there. Talk about your experience that day and what you remember.
Well, Joy, that's right. I had had knee replacement surgery 5 weeks before. And when we started to hear about the mobs outside, my husband actually texted me and said, I think you should come back to the office. And, I couldn't because I didn't know if I could make it back to the office walking. But I also thought that was the safest place I could be, was in the Capitol with the speaker. And that's what I texted him back. And when we realized that we were being told to get from the Democratic side to the Republican side, we had to crawl under banisters.
They had to go to the
I actually
Republican
went back
side. It
up
must
there
have been
this
deeply
morning
traumatic for
the
them.
first time since that happened. I wasn't able to go back to the gallery. I just couldn't do it until today. And I realized how many banisters we had to crawl under. And I had a cane 5 weeks out. I couldn't really walk. And when that picture that you're seeing up on the screen right now, I had to stretch my leg out to the right because I couldn't bend it. And I actually rolled from the seat onto the floor because it was the only way I could get down onto the floor. And, was thinking about, what do I do if these insurrectionists make it in? Jamie is right. We could hear that pounding on the door. And we were just so close to the doors. There was no furniture to barricade the doors either, like there was down on the main floor. And so I got my gas mask in one hand and my cane in the other. And I thought, well, I'll just hit him with my gas mask and hit him with my cane to try to get out of there. But all of that, Joy, is about
that's a better
the trauma
mentality
of
than
that
I'd
day,
expect from
but
a Democrat.
It continues.
It is. I
because
agree.
This is clear and present danger that we're still in. This was
Clear
not
and
a
present
situation
danger.
where
That they're
the
still
day happened
in.
and it was done.
Oh
We're
my
still in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you also wound up being sort of locked down with some Republican members and wound up testing positive for COVID because they didn't take seriously the COVID.
Oh my
God!
They couldn't stay away from
your
it.
health. And Congressman Ruma Gallego, I mean, you're a Marine. Now, look, my brother was Army National Guard, but I know you Marines.
They didn't even have the vaccine
Y'all are
then.
special, right? And you guys have definitely held a special place in the lore of American military history. But that really kind of put you in a position of leadership on that day, because people were looking to you. I mean, my understanding is that you and Representative Swalwell were the last to leave the floor, and that I think people were looking to you because you had
Eric
that
Swalwell
experience.
taking one for the
Talk
team.
about your experience that day and what you felt responsible to try to do.
Well, really what put me in the mode, I would say, is there was a young staffer on the floor, and I looked at her, and she was just absolutely scared, petrified, and it reminded me of actually being in war and seeing other young men, especially when we first hit contact, seeing that look. And
This is
the way that
insulting.
you
Yeah,
survive
It's insulting to people who've actually been in war.
having very clear leadership. And so that's when I started.
But you know what
giving
the
people
fucked up thing is? They have convinced themselves to be this afraid of people. This is an entirely created phenomenon in their head. They have convinced themselves of this.
I think some have. Some of them know they're acting with it. AOC, I think, knows she's acting when she comes out.
She wasn't even in the fucking building.
Yeah. But good point. But and look, I know. Look, in a situation like that, if you don't really know what's going on, the doors are getting banged on, and you're being told people are here to kill you and all that. I'm sure there's people that were very afraid and all that. But looking back on it, you should be able to have some clear eyes on the situation now. And to say all this shit now is just drama.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there may have been reason for them to be afraid then when they didn't know what was going on. But
we've had a bunch of grandmothers and fucked up dude on shrooms walking around with a crazy bull hat on, whatever the fuck he's wearing. I would be probably amused at that point.
Was out, and that's why Swallow and I stuck around and make sure we checked every every row before we left the floor.
Yeah, well, God bless you for doing that. And Congresswoman Presley, I have to say that, when this thing happened, there were so many thoughts that went through so many of our minds.
If my life was in the hands of Eric Swalwell, I would be terrified.
Because, if there were targets, specific targets that people who don't follow politics every day would be focused on, the squad, the speaker, you all were in that group of people that were really specially targeted. I will never forget the story about your panic.
No one was targeted.
No,
like I said, they didn't know what they were doing.
First of all, do you know now why? And please tell us about your experience.
I always said I didn't like Mike Pence. No one listened to me. They were like, he's great.
Experience and
I never
dealing
liked
with COVID afterwards as well.
Sure. Joy, I think it's really important that we not whitewash what spurred and perpetuated this big lie, ultimately resulting in this insurrection. And that is white supremacy.
Oh my
God.
That's
the heightened vulnerability that I might have had, having been in the sightline of the occupant of the White House, this Piper of hate, this insurrection.
Seth, can you make a shirt that says Pied Piper of Hate, please?
Actually, I might.
That has everything to do with a white supremacist violent mob backlash to historic record voter turnout.
But here's the crazy thing: like Anya Presley herself
so I think it's really
is evidence
that
white supremacy is overblown and it's of a bygone generation, because she represents in Congress one of the most historically racist cities in the country.
The host
she is Boston's congresswoman.
Yeah.
Like,
literal member of Congress.
The city that had violent protests against letting black kids go to school as late as the 1970s.
And the terror of that
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know 70s. I knew, I guess, mid-50s, but I didn't know about 70s.
White supremacy is a clear and present threat to the lives of every person who calls this country home.
Look at Joy Reid. She's going to cry. It's like, yes,
and there must be accountability.
Yes.
That is why we need full and thorough investigations. Anyone
it's all about
who
white
was
supremacy.
or aided and abetted in this, including members of Congress.
That's the only possible explanation is white supremacy.
There must be accountability. And that includes, again, starting with the origin of this insurrection and what led to the perpetuating of this big lie, restoring voting rights.
Oh, there it
is.
is.
So much more than just securing the Capitol. This is about securing our democracy.
And did you ever find out why the things that were supposed to save you in that moment weren't working? Do we know anything more about that?
They obviously were working because she's alive.
It's an open investigation, so there's really not much that I can say about that. Other than this, that ultimately, democracy won the battle on January
Then why
6th.
do we need the Voting Rights Act?
But the war is still being waged against democracy.
Yeah.
And that is white supremacy is a clear and present danger and threat. It must be rooted out, and there must be accountability.
I'm going to say it.
There to be healing
Democracy is more dangerous than white supremacy.
Instead, a reserved space for people who I think were the true patriots in this moment, like those Black custodians who were cleaning up the mess left behind.
Job security.
Violent white supremacist
Exactly.
Violent
We
white
are out of
supremacists.
time, but Congressman Jayapal, I know that you have created support groups. You are the head of the Progressive Caucus, and your caucus looks like this panel. And I want everybody in this country
is she
to look
saying
like this
that
panel.
Congress has no
Gallego,
white janitors?
That evidently, I was just thinking, I've seen a lot of white people working in Congress that are doing editorial looking roles.
They don't matter though.
This is like on par with Joe Biden saying black kids have all the same opportunities as smart kids.
The election in Georgia. Can you very quickly talk about how you all are supporting each other? There's a reason we wanted you all to be together.
Democracy
Because you all
won,
have held
but we need to
together
fortify
support each
democracy
other
with the
in
voting
wake of that
bill.
hell.
Well, it has been, I think, when you go through this kind of a shared experience, and as a person of color, which all three of us clearly are, and our Progressive Caucus has all races represented in the Progressive Caucus, the reality is we have been seeing and feeling exactly what Ayanna's been describing for many years now. And don't forget that Stop the Steal goes back to the 2016 election. So I think is the moment where we stand together. We say,
really?
"This
Are
is
you
who we
saying that
are,
you guys
America."
questioned the
And,
legitimacy
this
of the
is what we bring
2016
to the
election,
table,
and
I
that
was
was
about to say,
acceptable?
I was in
together
DC
for the kind of
for the
America that
inauguration, and the day before and the day after, and the time immediately after.
and invites it.
They weren't very, not very friendly people there.
No.
For Trump's inauguration, they burned down DC.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was there. I got literally at one point, we literally had to go like jump in an SUV and get like with police like just saying like get the fuck out and go.
Oh,
Like, it was wild.
And I respect you all so deeply. Thank you all for being here this evening. Up next, Sherilyn Ifill. Yo, we just keep on going. We have such amazing guests tonight. Sherilyn Ifill herself joins me next to discuss the big lies, corrosive effects.
We got to push
on
that
voting
voting
rights
bill.
and what's being done to
Isn't she a
combat
big
it. We will be
BLM
right
person?
Yeah, I think so.
So they're going to put a fucking BLM person on here to talk about violence at the Capitol that day? Are you fucking kidding me?
Of course they are. It's MSNBC.
I know. The hypocrisy is part of the deal, by the way. Like it's got to be in your face.
Biden is using this whole thing to push this voting rights bill because it's the only thing they have left since the Build Back Better thing failed.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of talk about that here in Georgia because obviously we are unfortunately the home to Stacey Abrams.
So what's going on in Georgia, Seth? What's the update from there?
With the governor's race, the U.S. Senate race, the fraud from Secretary of State's recent thing, it's a shit show. The latest thing that was just, I saw this yesterday. I retweeted. I was like, remind me to write a thread on this later. So our current Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, I know Brad, we're friendly personally. We have some political differences or whatever. He was the Secretary of State during 2020. He took a lot of heat. I don't know if you remember the whole he and Trump. Okay.
Oh, I remember. Oh, yeah.
Refreshing everybody. They secretly recorded the phone call with Trump and then sent it to the Washington Post. Like, oh, how'd that get there? Oh, yeah, it was us. Nonetheless, he just nonstop the election. There's integrity, no fraud, maybe 2 votes, whatever. He literally last night went on and it is the most, you got to go find it. So I'll have to find it and reshare it because it's probably down my Twitter link. But he literally does this video where he's doing an interview with someone and he's like, well, yes, we do have, I forget how he worded it. It was like, yeah, legitimate allegations of a ballot stuffing of about 5,500 votes.
Oh, for crying out loud,
like,
man.
He's just like kind of nervously, it is a bizarre fucking video. And they're like, wait, so do you trust the integrity of the election? I mean, because you've been saying that all along. Now you were a year later. And he said, I trust, whatever our process. And they were like, okay, so do you trust the validity of the election? And he's like, we were doing and I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, it was so fucking bad. I don't know how it's not a bigger national news story. Maybe the stupid shit going on now, but you got to go watch this video. And
I will absolutely watch it.
Like, I don't even know how to comprehend what's going on right now. And, he's running for re-election. He already was probably not going to win. And so I think he thinks he's getting ahead of it by saying like, this is the thing. He's crediting his arm of investigators for fighting this and they're going to look into it and get it handled. And it's like, well, actually it was a tipster that brought it to you, but nonetheless, but he's treating it as like, we've gone out and done this and the things I put into place. And like, this is a really poorly done attempt to get ahead of the narrative, but the narrative is going to be when it comes out that, I mean, if he's even saying it's legitimate that they think there's 5,600, whatever the number was, votes that were stuffed. If he's even saying he thinks that, it's going to be that, and it will be more.
Wow.
It's bad.
Wow.
And this is the guy that has just spent, he wrote a book. He wrote a fucking book.
No
about the
shit.
integrity of the election and standing up to Trump for truth, honesty, integrity, and all this kind of fucking shit. An actual book. And now he's having to come out and say, well, you know, and the elections were so close. 5,500 votes in just one dump. That's a big deal. I mean, Trump only lost the state. I think he's referring to the Senate race, which was, you know, a couple months later because we had a special Senate election. But, you know, Trump only won by, I forget what the final number, like 10,000, 12,000 votes overall. And I've lost by only 10 or 12,000 votes. And then
wow.
So it's going to get wild in Georgia.
Well, that's not even counting like the inadvertent systemic problems that they had with some of the votes. Like the audit they did here in New Hampshire, when they started hand counting the ballots, they realized that the way the mail-in ballots were printed, anybody who voted for me, it bled through and also filled out Joe Biden's bubble.
No shit. I didn't know that.
So had they voted for me and Trump, their vote for Trump got just wiped out as an overvote.
Perfect.
Wow.
And that wasn't like fraud. That was just a printing error.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right, let's go back
Yeah,
to
you
Georgia.
just got the incompetence in a lot of this.
It really is.
The election victory that the mob tried to overturn. Last year, 19 states passed 34 laws restricting access to voting, according to the Brennan Center for Justice. And dozens more bills will carry over into this year. As Vice President Harris noted,
she put New
Congress has
Hampshire
the
on that
power to
list, and we
stop
didn't
this
pass a
slow
bill
motion
that restricted
assault
voting.
on our democracy right now. With
All
the two bills awaiting
related to
Senate
elections
votes,
restrict
the
voting,
Freedom
apparently.
to Vote Act
Yes.
and the John Lewis Voting Rights
The one we
Advancement
passed
Act.
in New Hampshire
I'm joined now by Sherilyn Eichel,
was to say that
President and
for a
Director of
student to vote, they had to have an address other than their dorm room.
You know,
that's it.
Because we had a sitting Democrat state rep who had to resign because he couldn't make the House sessions because the school went remote because of COVID, and he had to go back home to California.
That's amazing.
January 6th.
All right, let's hear the BLM organizers.
Conservatives are trying to say, wait. Let's try to say that we don't need a wholesale fix to voting access. We can do little tweaks.
I didn't know that.
It at the small ends. We can
Whoopi
fix
tested positive
the
for
Electoral
COVID.
College Act and other
Thank
such
you,
things,
Multi-Drider.
and that should be enough, and then we're all square. Explain to us why that would not be enough.
Thank you so much, Joy. I'm happy to be here today. So I want to just emphasize two things. First of all, Trump did not start voter suppression. Voter suppression has been going on for as long as, we've been here. And
It's white supremacy.
Since the
White
Supreme Court's
supremacy
Shelby
started
County
it.
versus Holder decision in 2013, those of us who are civil rights lawyers have been sounding the alarm that
You're
states
right.
have been
White
trying
supremacy
to suppress
did
the
start
votes of
it
Black and brown
because the
people now
earliest
freed from
records
the
of voter
restrictions of
suppression
Section 5 of
are
the Voting Rights
Democrats
Act.
in
And we've been talking
Reconstruction,
about the need for
Alabama,
legislation
prohibiting
that will
freed
fix
slaves
the
from
Voting Rights
voting.
Act in
Exactly,
order
white
to
supremacy.
support our efforts to try to protect Black and brown and Asian American and Native American voters. So Trump did not create it. This was already in existence in Texas, in Florida, in a variety of states, and the lie about voter fraud has been around for 20 years, perpetrated often by the Republican Party, most of the time, suggesting that there is substantial voter fraud. This has been going on for decades. What Trump did was pick up the tools that the party had already been using and weaponize them, accelerated by the white supremacy that Representative Ayanna Pressley talked about in your last hit. And so now we come to this point where our democracy is in peril, and where the fact that our democracy was in peril in 2020 did not stop Black and brown voters and Asian American and Native American voters from coming out in record numbers, which
Asians
is
are
why
white now.
the 2020 presidential
Asians
election
Asians
was the
only
election
count
with
when
the
it's
highest
convenient.
vote turnout
Yeah.
ever in the history of this country.
They're the last
Since
group that are allowed to
1900,
be
because in 1900,
discriminated
Black
against
people
in
couldn't
public.
vote and women
Yeah.
couldn't vote.
Call
Ever in
Harvard.
the history
Actively
of this country.
discriminated against
And
at
not
every
only that,
university in this
not
country.
only did 5 million Black
Wow.
people turn out to vote in November 2020 in Georgia, 4.5 million of that 5 million showed up for the special election on January 5th. Is why you can't talk about January 6th without talking about January 5th. Because January 5th showed once again that this power was a transformative power. It didn't just elect Joe Biden by this incredible margin. It also resulted in the election of the first Black senator from Georgia.
Democrats
since
won January
Reconstruction
6th
and
because
only
of Lin
the
Wood.
second Jewish statewide officer in the state of Georgia. And of course,
Don't mention that fucking name anymore. Never come on
so
your
you have to
mind.
put all of that in context. And then what we saw, as you point out in 2021, was a series of state election laws designed to make sure that that resilience and determination that minority voters showed in 2020, standing in line in Fulton County for 9 hours to vote in the primary,
That's
standing
what
in
Fulton
line for
County
7
is
hours in
confident
Harris
voting.
County,
It's wild.
standing in line
That's
during a
weird.
pandemic, during the height of the pandemic, in the Milwaukee primary, facing off voter intimidation.
I'm going to tell my
facing
favorite Lin
off,
Wood story on the next
restrictions
commercial.
on absentee
Oh, God, I
voting.
wanna hear
All
it.
of that, their
It's a
job,
good story.
they decided was to make sure that could never happen again. And beginning with Georgia and its voter suppression law in March, it has been off to the races. LDF is litigating in Georgia. We're litigating in Texas. We're litigating in Florida, but there are many other states as well. And then on top of that, the Supreme Court issued a decision this summer in the Brnovich case that weakened Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
And what we have now is the perfect storm. And if we are going to survive as a democracy, we
All right.
must have voter
She's talking boring stuff. So I just want to say, Catherine Scully, thank you for being a member on my channel for 12 months. According to the mainstream media, insurrectionists have almost overturned the government. So they would have to succeed if they tried. So they would have succeeded if they tried a little harder.
continue for voters.
They
That's
should
what
have.
they're trying.
They should
to
have tried a
choke
little
off.
harder.
And I hear people talking all the time about 2024 and the Electoral Count Act, and I care about that too. But the game is 2022. Understand that if we don't have changes in 2022, we are
They know
facing
that.
the potential of a fully
Oh,
unraveled
God.
democracy.
They're going to get their
This is
asses
as serious
kicked.
as it gets. We are holding this up.
And it's not even because of anything the Republicans are doing either.
Senator
It's like the
Manchin,
Republicans are
They
going to
absolutely
win by
suck.
default.
Yeah,
believe
they
that the
absolutely fucking suck,
filibuster,
but
a
we're going to
Senate
win by
rule,
default.
a Senate
Yeah.
debate rule,
Which
is
I'm okay
more
with. I'm
important
okay
at
with.
this
It's,
moment
you know,
than the
Yeah.
rights guaranteed to Black
It
voters
is what it is.
under the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment. And it was gratifying to hear President Biden finally say several weeks ago that this legislation must pass, and if the filibuster must go, then it must go. President Biden and Vice President Harris are going to be in Atlanta next Tuesday. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to say. They're going to be talking about
I'll be out of
voting.
town.
You know, I wonder what she would have to say.
Understand the stakes of
Yeah, I
this,
wonder what she
as
would
we
have to
do,
say about the
Joy,
fact that
is
like
really-
less than 23% of blacks in major cities are vaccinated, and that Democrat enforced vaccine mandates are what are really disenfranchising Black Americans
Well-
by keeping them from conducting business, going to school, or engaging in their local economy.
It's funny that you say that, Justin, because some friends of mine in Wisconsin at Myth Informed recently asked Ibram X. Kendi if vaccine mandates were systemic racism, and he wouldn't answer the question, even though it fits Ibram X. Kendi's definition of systemic racism to an absolute T.
The former mayor of Boston was asked about vaccine mandates about 6 months before the election, and she said, absolutely not. I will never allow such a racist policy to take effect in the city. And then she lost in a landslide to Brianna Wu, who put a vaccine mandate in as her first act.
But didn't even put it in. It isn't even implemented till like for like another week.
Right.
So it was like a big because I was in Boston last week. They weren't doing it. Okay, here's my favorite Lin Wood story ever.
Author.
So
Come on now.
I used to after the whole like Georgia election thing, stalking Lin Wood's Telegram was like my favorite guilty pleasure in the world. And so Lin Wood went to Mercer Law School, right? And they had this whole courtroom named after him. And Mercer was having Mercer was having a meeting to decide whether or not Lin Wood's name should stay on this courtroom. And Lin Wood found out about it and crashed the Zoom meeting and didn't tell anyone he was there for like an hour into the meeting. And he recorded the whole thing and posted it on his Telegram. And about an hour into the meeting, he speaks up. He's like, "This is Lin Wood, and I'm here to defend myself."
Did it go off the rails? That's amazing.
It went completely off the rails because apparently he had been friends with the dean of the law school, so they just basically got into this struggle session.
Oh man! Because I'm sure. I mean, the only reason he was named to that, he made a shitload of money back in the day, and I'm sure he gave a shitload of money to them. So I'm sure that was the only reason he was there. So they were debating that aspect would be my guess. But I bet he was. He was pretty wild.
Oh my God, Lin Wood! I just started following Sidney Powell on Gitter. It's a. I don't know what to think. It's like a weird obsession.
I'm already bored with the platform.
They were at one time. You could at one time they were just legal people that were Republicans or whatever. I mean, they really were. And I don't know. It's like someone zapped them in like the little thing. And what's the Alien movie? Like they put something in front of their head and zapped them with something. And they just went fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
I don't like Sidney Powell. Maybe I just wasn't following her enough or didn't know much about her before to see it. But like, I never saw anything super crazy from her like 10 years ago or something.
Right.
But that certainly changed. I took a lot of heat I called Linwood out early and all this stuff. And I did it in, very delicate terms. I kind of fucking idiot and whatever else.
Super delicate.
Very. And people just, of course, lost it with me on that. And, you're no longer MAGA, no longer Trump. I'm like, okay, sure.
Oh, I remember when I tweeted in like December, I was like, I don't think the Kraken is real. And it was like, oh, how dare you? I was like, I really don't think it's real.
I forgot about the Kraken.
Oh my God.
Those were the days.
Those were the days back in the day.
Oh
my God. Well, Justin, you want to remind everyone what you're doing in about 15 minutes? Just so you want to plug your stream again? So now you're going to have to depart.
Over on Odyssey, on my channel, O'Donnell for Liberty, over on Odyssey, we're doing an 8 to midnight mega stream, getting all of the libertarian shit posters in one place throughout the night as people just pop in and pop out just to have fun, talk shit, and say all the things that would get us kicked off of YouTube.
Excellent. Excellent. Seth, how do you feel about the libertarians?
Look, if you were to I'm very libertarian in a lot of my beliefs when it really comes down to it. I just want to be able to get someone elected, though, to implement those beliefs.
Yeah.
And now I'm about to really drive Justin wild with that statement. But
no, that just means you have to move to New Hampshire to do it.
Well, okay, I get what you're doing there. And I see that there's, from the outside, I haven't paid that much attention, but there seems to be quite a movement of it there. But in case where I'm at in Georgia or pretty much any other state I can think about, it's just not an option.
So a lot of that comes down to the election laws and the way they're situated and why libertarians can't get elected.
I agree with you about getting the ballot. Even if you change the fucking election laws, you can have libertarian in Georgia, just as an example, maybe something different there in New Hampshire. Look, I've run a lot of elections. I dealt with a lot of voters. Voters are fucking stupid, and I'm literally talking about our own voters. I'm sure someone will one day say that and use it against me, but I've said it before.
No. A partisan libertarian has only been elected to a state legislature in 4 states ever.
We are one of them, by the way.
No, you had somebody switch parties. They didn't get elected as a libertarian. The only 4 states in which a state rep has been elected are Wyoming, Alaska, Vermont, and New Hampshire. In Vermont, Wyoming, and Alaska, it happened once each. In New Hampshire, it's happened 18 times. So it's a different place. It's a different mentality. I joke that a Massachusetts Republican is a New Hampshire Democrat.
Yeah.
And the Republicans up here are a healthy mix of more of the hard right social conservatives and just really radical libertarians. One of my favorite lawsuits that I've ever seen the state lose was a religious couple who was very upset that they couldn't take "Live Free or Die" off their license plate, and that was fought to the death. But what constitutes a legal license plate in New Hampshire? Say your license plate's damaged or you haven't received it yet, you can just take a piece of cardboard, write the numbers on the piece of cardboard, and as long as it says "Live Free or Die," it's a legal license plate. That's the contingent. It has to say "Live Free or Die" on it to be a legal license plate.
Wow.
That's hilarious. All right, let's turn up Joy Reid. Justin, if you have to bounce, I totally understand because you got a stream coming up, but thank you for joining. I appreciate it.
Adios.
Cool. See ya. All right, let's see what Joy has. Ibram Kendi,
anti-racist research and best-selling author of How to Be an Anti-Racist. And Mr. Kendi, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk with you tonight. I have to tell you, I tweeted this earlier. The image that I cannot get out of my head from the day of the insurrection 1 year ago today is the image of that man taking a symbol of the Confederacy, the Confederate flag, the fake Confederate flag.
There was one Confederate flag there.
Whatever they called themselves.
And of course they found it.
I know. Which is amazing, honestly, with that many people, there was only
that image right there disgusts me more than any of the other images. Well, actually, most of the images are disgusting, but this
what are the chances he was a Fed?
Awful.
I'd say high.
Yeah, I would too.
Fake nation.
But look, you're going to find a couple of those people. I'm from Georgia. You're going to find a couple of them.
Everyone.
He brought that
all the
symbol
political rallies in Georgia.
of our capital. That didn't even happen during the Civil War.
It's true.
Okay.
I wonder if there are images for you, as somebody who writes about anti-racism, that struck you in particular from that day.
He's gonna cry.
Well, Joy, I think we're on the same page. It was that image too, and I just can't get out of my mind what the cornerstone of the Confederacy was. And Alexander Stephens, the vice president, said it in 1861, that this new nation is based on the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, and slavery subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. That is what that flag symbolized. And indeed, that is what that insurrection symbolized, trying to destroy the multiracial democracy we're seeking to build.
You know, it's funny because, people like myself and others who said this when Donald Trump was elected, that Trumpism is racism, used to get pilloried and say that that was, hysterical almost to say that. But Trumpism is tied with this lore for the Confederacy, which Trump himself had.
What are you talking about? Trump's from New York. That makes no sense.
The symbol of lynching.
These kind of people have to
wanted to
go on these
lynch
kind of shows because
Mike
they could not
Pence.
go
They
on a
said,
show
hang Mike
with
Pence.
you
They
or
wanted
I.
to
because
lynch
they're
him
disgusted with them.
because he
no.
refused to reverse an
Absolute slaughter.
election
Yeah.
that black and brown
Which
people and
Chris
people of
Rufo
color,
proved
AAPI
when he
people
debated
had
Joy
made
Reid
a
and
decision,
destroyed her.
had in the majority
I've
voted
seen
for
that.
Joe
Me too.
Biden.
Oh,
and
it's
they
really
won.
good. He did a good
And
job.
therefore,
When did
that
that happen?
had to be illegitimate. I remember that during
I don't know, several months
Barack
ago.
Obama's tenure. That the election of the president
Maybe back
had
in
to be
June or
illegitimate
July.
because it wasn't possible for black and brown people to make a decision that could stick in American democracy. How worried are you that this concept of a multiracial democracy cannot succeed because we have so many people who fundamentally oppose it?
I mean, that's the sort of eternal worry. But I also think it's important for us to remember that people are taught and manipulated into opposing it. They're consistently taught by people like Trump that a multiracial democracy is somehow anti-white. That the equality we're
I
trying
hate that
to
Ibram
build
Kenny's
is
using
not
this
an
term.
equality that's
God
going to
damn it.
benefit white people. And indeed, studies show that what singularly sort of distinguishes
Literally
Trump
shilling
voters
for
are
white
people who somehow
identitarians, but okay.
believe that white people are the primary victims of racism, even though when you look at racial disparities from wealth to health to education to incarceration, white people are typically on the higher end, and black and indigenous people are typically on the
We're
lower
Asian.
end. But
I
people
would love to
still
ask you where
somehow
Asians
believe,
are.
Exactly.
So they're
that
they're
white
doing,
people are
here's
being
the
subjected,
safest
that the election
fucking
was
room you can
stolen
be
from
in
white
is
people, not
with
those black and
a
brown
room full of Asians. Like, look at
Oh,
the
yeah.
crime stats. So, I'm happy to talk about, if you want to talk about race when it comes to crime, violence, and all this shit, sure, you can look at it by race. And I'm a white person, and I will say that as a whole, the Asian community is a less violent community than whites. It's just a fucking reality. You can have that conversation, but these guys want to lie about reality. And it's unbelievable.
And the Asian community is one of the communities that is most against critical race theory, because especially the Chinese immigrants. The Chinese immigrants are like, we recognize what's going on here. We don't like it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Talking to Koreans too.
Oh, for real.
Isn't it interesting that the people who are fighting against the teaching of history and calling it critical race theory and saying you are part of critical race theory, which you're not, that they don't think that their kids will identify with the abolitionists.
blatant
they think
lie.
their kids are going to be sad because they're going to identify with the oppressors and the enslavers. What do you make of that?
Well, Joe, I think you're revealing that they don't even know their own history. They don't even know white America's history. They don't know those white Americans who, if we were to teach about slavery, we would teach about people like Wendell Phillips in Boston, or William Lloyd Garrison, in Boston, or so many white people during the Civil Rights Movement, some of whom were even killed, during the Civil Rights Movement, and that their children would identify with those people, not the slaveholders. They would identify with the abolitionists.
Are they talking like we're in favor of slavery?
Who are
I don't know what's going on here.
Oh my God.
They might know who their own personal ancestors are and worry that their children might get more information than they want them to have. Let's just leave
What
it
are you talking
Ibram Kendi,
about?
who is not part of the critical race theory, sort of dissertation in the world, but he is a great and brilliant man. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you.
Wow.
President Biden and Vice President Harris are.
Wow. Ibram Kendi is not part of critical race theory, according to Joy Reid.
So who is? Anyone?
Exactly. Oh my God. I need to tweet that right now. Oh my God. I'm going to clip the shit out of that.
By the way, did you watch? Today has been crazy for me. Did you watch the Biden speech, the whole thing, and the convo?
I saw parts of it. It seemed to me that Biden was pretty pissed off that people weren't just jumping on board with his presidency and was just berating Trump supporters the whole time to try to pass his voting rights bill. That's what it seemed like to me.
Did he seem like he was with it any more better than usual, or he was just?
Oh no, they shot him up with something. He was definitely a little bit more feisty than normal, but like he was still obviously reading off a teleprompter. Yeah.
Because a lot of times, I even like watching him, I'm like, how much of this is really him even being passionate about something, or he's just reading a script? Because it's pretty difficult to tell.
I think most of the time he's reading a script and he's saying exactly what he's told. It's a sad thing to watch. I actually feel bad for Biden.
Yeah, it genuinely is. And I know a lot of people want to be like, a lot of people are like, why aren't you angrier at Biden? I'm like, I'm angrier at the people around him running things. Like,
yeah,
I just don't even really care about him.
I actually kind of feel like, Biden has wanted to be president his entire life, finally got to be president, isn't going to remember a damn second of it. No one even cares. Like, I saw something like he had 230 people watching a live stream he did yesterday or something.
Jesus.
Yes. It's like, it's a sad thing. He's wanted to be president forever.
And he doesn't even know it.
Doesn't even know he's president. But I mean, what about his wife letting them do this?
You know what? That's
my God.
I have someone close to me that one of the spouses has Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's. And the wife is like the sweetest little church-going grandmother you'll ever meet. Like, just never has a harmful word about anyone. She hates Jill Biden.
Oh, I bet.
Just because she's like, I cannot believe, and this is the way she works, I cannot believe they allow him to be, she allows that to happen to him. Because she can see it, because it's so similar to this guy, her husband, and she can see it so clearly. And she's just like, it's just absolute abuse.
Oh, I feel the same way. Like when my grandmother kind of lost it with dementia, I was like, I see exactly the same things in Biden. I'm like, how is she letting him do this? It is insane.
It's disgusting. When you know someone like that going through that, and then you see it, it's really disgusting.
It is. Well, Savannah wants to know, what does your shirt say, Seth?
I don't know if you can actually see it.
I can see it. I can see it. Don't be a vaxhole.
And this one surprisingly has not been banned. I think maybe the word thing, it hasn't picked up on the automatic readers to get us reported. I'm sure someone's probably busily reporting it now, but
well, probably. Guys, just as a reminder, you can get 10% off that Don't Be a Vaxhole shirt and your entire order at bringammo.com by using the promo code Carlin.
You know what? Since we're on your show, let's make it better than that. This will be for tonight.
Special deal?
Yeah, I can't do this forever, but for tonight, let's make it 20% off.
Sweet.
See if I can do that right now.
So guys, go fill up your cart with awesome merch on bringammo.com and just use my name as a promo code in the checkout. Apparently you're going to get 20% off, which is pretty great. There's lots of awesome stuff. Done deal. The only challenge is spelling my name. But
I was about to say that.
Yeah. That's the biggest hurdle you have. You can fill up your shopping cart with lots of awesome stuff. And again, I wear their stuff all the time. I really, really do. And people love it. You get lots of compliments and it makes you feel not so alone in the world.
And it goes back to making others, which is one reason I did this. And it's funny, like I even saw recently, this was when we were having one of our things when people were telling everybody to wear masks. I never complied. I was always a problem at stores. But I'm walking out of a store and I can't remember what I had. I think I had Fauci lied or something like that on it. And I'm walking out of the store and this mom and her son are walking in as I'm leaving at Staples. And they were very aggressive at Staples about the mask thing. I didn't wear one, but I'm coming out without a mask. But they're going in. There's just all these signs that say, wear a mask, whatever. And the mom turns to her son and she said, oh, we got to go back to get our car and get a mask or whatever. And I said, why don't you just pretend you did and don't? Because I'm literally passing them coming out without a mask. And, they looked at my shirt and said something. And kind of laughed, and they're like, oh, yeah. They kind of looked at each other. I'm getting in my car, and they kind of looked at each other, and I see the kid. I mean, when I say son, he's probably like 18 or 20, and they're kind of talking for a minute, just standing outside the door, and he's like shaking his head, and then they just like went ahead and like walked in the store. I was like, you know what? If it just happens every now and then, that literally, I don't know why, but that just thrilled me seeing that response.
You give other people courage. When you show courage, you give other people courage.
Yeah, it's true.
It's the way it should be. All right, let's finish up Joy here.
Our great nation now teeters on the brink
Jimmy
of a
Carter.
widening abyss. Without immediate action, we are at genuine risk of civil conflict and losing our precious democracy. Historian Michael Beschloss had a similar warning.
If we lose our democracy this year, we are unlikely to get it back during our lifetimes.
Oh my God.
I can't think of anything more important than that.
Now, these days, it feels like we are constantly being let down by everything and everyone. But I want to leave you with this. America's exceptionalism has always been sown by the millions of regular, ordinary Americans who have summoned the courage in the face of fierce opposition to rewrite destiny. It's Crazy Horse fighting for the Sioux Nation at the Battle of Little Bighorn and winning. It's the hundreds of faceless women who gathered at Seneca Falls telling the world they had had enough of being treated as second-class citizens. It's Fred Korematsu, who refused to accept his racist imprisonment in a Japanese-American internment camp. It's the hundreds of defiant and frankly terrified freedom riders who faced violence and death because they refused to accept America's dehumanizing policy of segregation. It's the young activist named John Lewis, who led hundreds of marchers over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which helped deliver the Voting Rights Act. It's Dolores Huerta, who waged a lifelong crusade to correct economic injustice and to help improve the lives and wages of farm workers. And that same fearless fight for justice is being fought today by folks like Latasha Brown, Stacey Abrams, and all the election workers who face death threats for counting our votes. These people are bending the arc of America's moral universe towards justice. They are waiting for it to just happen. So remember, with 10 months till the next election, we are not powerless. The greatest defenders of democracy are not those in power. It's you. The millions of Americans living your lives quietly, trying to do what's right. If democracy has any hope
This is some of the most shameless shilling I've ever seen in my life. My God.
Tonight's readout. All in with Chris Hayes starts now.
My God. Well, I guess we're moving into Chris Hayes now. I think I'm going to keep streaming for a while, but Seth, you're welcome to stay or go depending on your schedule. I don't know how long you want to apply for.
I do have to take off in just a minute, but I've had a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, well,
I haven't seen Joy Reid in a long time, so that was.
It is always an adventure with Joy Reid. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for everything you do with Bring Ammo. It always brightens my day. You guys put out such great stuff, and I'm super happy to shill for you.
I love it. All right, well, you have a great one. Take care.
Bye, Seth. Have a good one. All right, guys, we're going to stick around on our MSNBC live stream for a little while. Just as a reminder, because Seth was the owner of BringAmmo.com, joined me for a little bit, you can head over to BringAmmo.com and get 20% off your whole order with the promo code Carlin. But let's stick around because listen, man. So basically what's going on with this is the Bidens are the Bidens. I mean, I like Joe Biden even has any say in this, but they're basically trying to use January 6th in order to push this voting bill to allow them to fortify all future elections. But let's tune in with Chris Hayes to see what he has to say. He's looking very somber tonight. Mount that like button if you have not already. And let's see what's going on MSNBC.
January 6th has taken on the sense of power and resonance in the cultural imagination in a way that few dates do. It's probably the most infamous date in this country's history since September 11th. And today, we saw on full display the battle over the meaning of this date. Because right now, we do not know what January 6th will mean generations down the line. You know, as you travel across the world, you encounter lots of places named after dates, usually marking the occasion of a revolution or a military victory or a hard-won battle for independence. It's the case of the city and street Nueve de Julio in Argentina, or the neighborhood.
Oh, you know he was practicing pronouncing that one all day.
Both of which celebrate their nation's independence. Or 26th July Street in downtown Cairo, celebrating the revolution that overthrew the monarchy in that country. Years from now, we could see something similar, celebrating January 6th. There could be plazas dedicated to the insurrectionists all over the country. Sounds preposterous now, but in the aftermath of the Civil War, it probably sounded preposterous that there would be an avenue named after Confederate General Robert E. Lee in Brooklyn, New York. The General Lee Avenue exists as such to this day. So right now, in this very moment, there's a fight over how to signify what this date today will mean in our country's collective memory. Earlier today, President Joe Biden offered
Look at that
his
picture
vision
of Biden
January
looking
6th
like he might
as
actually be
something
conscious of
a
what's going
historical
on.
inflection point.
Come on, man.
So now let's
Come
step
on.
up
write the next chapter in American history, where January 6th marks not the end of democracy, but the beginning of a renaissance of liberty and fair play. I did not seek this fight brought to this Capitol 1 year ago today, but I will not shrink from it either. I will stand in this breach. I will defend this nation. And I will allow no one to place a dagger at the throat of democracy.
Now, it probably goes without saying, I believe that Biden's position is the correct one here.
I would say that goes without
saying,
Chris. Yeah,
Republicans
I would.
agreed.
I mean,
Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate
No.
condemned the violence.
No, that was
even
the biggest.
as a majority of House
Hang on.
Republicans. Then after the violence,
That was one of the biggest
went
mistakes
into the
Republicans
chamber
have
to vote
ever
to
made.
elect
I'll talk
coup,
about that on the next commercial
voting
break.
to
That was a
refuse to certify
stupid
the results of the
effing
election.
decision by
But today, 1 year
Republicans
later,
to
the
be like,
response from
"Oh, we're
congressional
so
Republicans
sorry."
has been overwhelmingly silent.
Good, because they learned a
Exemplified
lesson.
starkly by this image of the only 2 Republicans in the House
Good.
chamber today.
Good.
On the lower right side of your screen, you will see Vice Chair of the committee investigating the insurrection, Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming in red, and to her right, her father of all people,
Liz
former
Cheney
Vice
just needs
President
to
Dick
become a
Cheney.
Democrat. I don't even know why we're playing
is
it.
it.
Well, I guess it
Just the
doesn't
two
really
of them.
matter because she's not going to
The
win
rest of the
again in
Republican Party, it
re-election, so it
seems,
doesn't
has yet
really
to reach a
matter, I suppose.
consensus on how to frame the events of January 6th.
No,
except
we're
to
pretty
agree that it
good.
really was not all that bad. Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis decried what he says is the unnecessary politicization of the 6th.
I
which,
would
of course,
tend to
was,
agree with you,
well,
Dragon Water.
an inherently political event perpetrated by
I
one
would tend
party
to
in response to an
agree.
electoral loss.
I think it's going to end up being just a politicized Charlie Foxtrot today. I don't expect anything good to come out of anything that Pelosi and the gang are doing. I don't expect anything from the corporate press to be enlightening. I think it's going to be nauseating, quite frankly.
A politicized Charlie Foxtrot. DeSantis
Fox News
is
played
amazing.
whataboutism with the events of the day, with one anchor
Amazing.
publicly speculating why Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi only paid tribute to the police officers who lost their lives and not Ashley Babbitt, the insurrectionist who was killed by law enforcement as he tried to force her way through a door leading to the lobby of the House chamber.
was
One
an
went, the other went,
insurrectionist.
and now it is done. 1 year later, January 6th, she recognized the police officers only, not the 5th person who was also killed that
The
day.
only person who was actually
we'll move on.
murdered on January 6th.
Yeah, let's move on. Republican
The only
Congressman
one-
Tom Reid of New York, who as recently as last May called the insurrection an assault on our democracy
Clusterfuck.
and backed creating a bipartisan committee to investigate it, put out a statement today saying that January 6th was, quote, the darkest day of my congressional career, but then turned around and said he is still supporting Donald Trump, the man who incited the assaults in the first place.
If President Trump is the candidate that's representing the Republican Party, I will support him because the Republican Party that I believe in, that would put him in that position, is the party that's going to see us into the future.
And speaking of Donald Trump, the ex-president who fomented the insurrection, who watched it unfold, refusing to intervene, indeed, by some accounts, watching with excitement, released a predictably unhinged statement today in his own bid to cast the memory and the significance of the
I don't
date,
even know what Trump said
lying
today.
about the results of the 2020
I was pretty
election
bummed
again,
that Trump
predictably,
canceled his
and
press
implicitly
conference today.
endorsing the events of the 6th as a
Oh.
necessary political
Critical
uprising, which has
failure,
been his position
I
for a while
guess.
now. Quote, to watch Biden
I like
speaking is very
clusterfuck
hurtful
better.
to many people.
Thank you, emphasize.
They're the ones who tried to stop the peaceful transfer with a rigged election. America is a laughingstock of the world, and it's all because of the real insurrection, which took place on November 3rd, the real insurrection. Never forget the crime of the 2020 presidential election. Never give up.
Oh, good for
What
Trump.
do you think that means? What do you think people hear when they hear
We all know what it means,
What do you
Chris.
think he wants to do again?
Win?
That position that the real insurrection was the Democratic election in which a majority voted him out.
Listen,
That's a position that is shared by, well, articulated at least, by Trump's most aberrant, most antisocial followers, who are the vanguard of the MAGA movement. And the vanguard of a movement to turn this into a day of celebratory occasion.
yes, it is a day of celebratory
Like Florida
occasion.
Republican
It
Congressman
is a
Matt
day of
Gaetz,
liberty.
who openly expresses admiration for the insurrectionists.
You know what's funny is if Trump was like the real insurrection was on election day and Biden responded to that in his speech today, that literally means that Trump dictated Biden's speech today. That's how much power Trump has. That's intense, man.
So we're going to make those arguments today in a press conference at 2:15, and we're actually going to go walk the grounds that patriotic Americans walked from the White House to the Capitol, who had no intent of breaking the law or doing violence.
That is where the Republican Party will try to take this. Mark my words.
There was a scheduled rally at the Capitol. It had a
6th
flipping
depends on what comes
permit,
next.
Chris.
It's just not set. History.
It is a day of liberty. January 6th should be celebrated like Guy Fawkes Day.
Gates will not be the only one pushing a shame to nothing line. There is a contingent, a faction in American life, a minority faction, but one that has essentially seized one of the two parties that want to turn today into a holiday, an occasion to celebrate.
Yes. We
and
should.
They could win.
They will win.
If everyone who believes in American democracy, who believes, as I do, the core vision of a multiracial, multi-sectarian, self-governing people across all sorts of line of difference, commanding our own fate together collectively for ourselves.
Remember the 6th of
If
January.
all of those people across those lines of difference do not band together in the face of the people who refuse to be ashamed of their attack on that principle 1 year ago.
No, I refuse to
then
be
the
ashamed. I didn't
recollection
do
of this
anything
day
wrong.
could look very different in the future.
Why
Jamie
doesn't
Raskin is
BL
Democrat
oh
from
God,
Maryland. He is a
fucking Jamie
member of the
Raskin.
House Select.
Where was Chris Hayes when Black Lives Matter sieged the White House? Why doesn't Black Lives Matter have to be ashamed of burning down cities and causing $2 billion worth of property damage? Where was Chris Hayes telling people to be ashamed then? Look at Jamie Raskin's gonna cry. Someone's gonna cry tonight. I am streaming until someone cries on MSNBC. Guys, mount that like button if you would like someone to cry on MSNBC.
I mean, either people are going to understand that this is the expression of a basically fascistic movement that connects the highest reaches in the Republican Party and Donald Trump with violent fascistic street criminals, or they don't understand that. But we are up against a serious right-wing authoritarian attack on American political democracy. So if we allow it to be swept under the rug or trivialized
do
or
a poll for
minimized
what?
by people
I'll
like
do a poll, but
Matt
do a
Gaetz,
poll for
then
what?
We are in very certain danger of opening the road to right-wing authoritarianism to take over American government.
I thought this image today of Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney.
I wonder if Jamie Raskin feels that anyone can be a right-wing authoritarian or a right-wing person without being a right-wing authoritarian.
I found that.
Oh, if someone will cry. Okay, hang on.
And worth 1,000 words and unnerving. What do you see when you see that?
Well, first of all, there were no Republicans in the chamber at all. It was just completely empty, devoid, not as usual, just of ideas. But
all right, guys,
devoid
poll
of,
coming in the chat on YouTube.
presence
Will
over on
someone
their
cry
side of the
tonight on MSNBC? Yes or
and
no?
that was
Place
chilling. It was a
your
little bit
bets.
like a sci-fi movie, and I was happy that Liz came, and I'm happy that she brought
Thank
her
you,
dad,
that guy
because I've
over
been
on Odyssey,
trying to check out the history
for
of
that.
coups
I don't know what it's
around
called
the
on
world
Odyssey.
in,
Super chat. I
you
don't know
know,
what it's called.
Greece, Argentina, Chile, whatever. You
But I
can't find
appreciate
an
it.
example of an attempted coup and a serious fascist push into society where progressives
just
and
say
liberal
Faucius?
parties alone defeat fascism. You need a coalition of liberals and the center right. And Liz Cheney has a high burden of hope.
Liz
placed on
Cheney
her,
is
as
not
well as
center right. Liz
Adam
Cheney is
Kinzinger and
rhino.
a handful of others who've stood strong because they represent the possibility that we
Look
will
at
really
Dick
have
Cheney
a
wearing a
broad
mask.
coalition of constitutional
God.
patriots in America.
Dick
who
Cheney
are
is
resisting
responsible
what
for
Donald
more
Trump's trying to
bloodshed
do to
than
us.
pretty much anyone else
Yeah,
alive,
and I
and
should
he's
note
been
that
reduced to
Kinzinger,
wearing
I
a
think they
mask.
issued a statement saying he wanted to be there, but could not today, and would have been there if he could have. This question of accountability, which sort of haunts the spectacle. I mean, I think you have Republicans basically en masse not wanting to say anything. A few, like I said, in the vanguard who will celebrate it and go on Steve Bannon's podcast. But there's also the
I think a
question
lot of them will go on Steve Bannon's podcast.
a year later.
But okay.
I mean, who has really paid a price for this other than hundreds of sort of foot soldiers who have been arrested?
Well, but that's an important point to make. Where, you know, there are more than 700 prosecutions that are underway, which should give some comfort to people who feel like the Department of Justice isn't doing anything. But it also should be a very important message to Donald Trump's own followers that he's perfectly happy to send in these foot soldiers to go and essentially ruin their lives and put their families at risk and get people injured and killed. He wouldn't even come to our trial to defend his own conduct. He wouldn't even come and testify or turn anything over. He's a complete snowflake, and he's willing to get other people killed and other people hurt including the people who've fallen into his cult. But he's not willing to stand up and to defend his own conduct. It's really disgraceful.
Yeah, and in fact, you will note that while money has been taken from donors to pay for the president's legal defense and a few people in his inner circle, that largesse has not extended to the hundreds and hundreds of people who essentially answered his call to storm the Capitol on that day, which goes to your point.
Well, and remember, he authorized his lawyers at the Senate trial when we pressed them on it to denounce the violence, and they said they thought it was disgusting and sickening, and nobody would ever utter a positive word for the insurrectionists on their side of the aisle, and on their defense team. And of course, Trump now is saying that they greeted the police officers with hugs and kisses, and it was basically like the second coming of MLK's March on Washington. It's utterly fraudulent, and Donald Trump refuses to take a stand. Either he should
I think he's taken a pretty clear stand, in fact. I think he's taken a very clear stand. You just don't like the stand he took.
Say that he's opposed to criminal violence, but he won't say that because
it was a mostly peaceful protest.
Are always
it was mostly peaceful.
By violence, and he has egged them on from the beginning. The Oath Keepers, the Three Percenters, the Proud Boys, the Aryan Nations, the militia groups, everybody who showed up that day, he has egged on their violence.
There were a minimum of 50,000 people on that Capitol lawn.
I recommend it highly.
Most of them were not Proud Boys or Oath Keepers or Three Percenters. Not that there's anything wrong with being any of those things.
A tremendous personal loss.
Oh my God, Jamie Raskin wrote a book. Of course, Jamie Raskin wrote a book. Oh my God.
You remain a fairly hopeful person.
What a goddamn grifter.
What gives you hope as you stare down the barrel of this year?
This is my parents' congressman right here. My parents happily vote for this guy, or at least my mother, who is still lucid.
There is a temptation to succumb to a kind of despair and doom. Watching
my father used to be such a libertarian growing up. I don't know what the hell happened.
How insidious the highest levels of one of our two parties has become.
Yeah, I bet they're not wearing pants, Jose. I bet they're not.
That gives me some hope.
Chris Hayes didn't read his book
in a really serious way.
No, no one's reading your book in a serious way, Jamie.
When everything looks hopeless,
Jamie, more people are going to read my book than are going to read your book. I'm sorry.
For despair, and we don't have time for despondency. Unfortunately,
guys, when my book comes out next year, let's make it a goal. Not next year, this year, end of April, April 26th. My book is coming out. It's called Actively Unwoke. You can pre-order it now on Amazon. Maybe you guys can all help me in making sure more people read my book than read Jamie Raskin's book. I think that'd be pretty great. It's called Actively Unwoke, and it is available on Amazon now for pre-order.
On January 6th, a year ago on the floor, who said that if doom
I'll even put a link in the chat.
ever come to America, it will not come from monsters abroad. It will come from the monsters within who are here. And by that, he meant
I just put it in the chat on YouTube if you'd like to pre-order my book. I'll do that on Odyssey and Rockfin as well.
A mob attack on a newspaper editor, Mr. Lovejoy, who was killed, who was an abolitionist who was killed by a racist mob. But we also finally have to look, and most importantly, we've got to look.
Well, I need your help to have more sales than Jamie Raskin.
Young people, because this generation of young Americans, they are beyond everything that Donald Trump wants to pump into the blood of America. They're beyond the poisons of racism and anti-Semitism and misogyny. They're beyond all of that. And we just have to galvanize the young people to get engaged, which is why my whole campaign has been turned over to Democracy Summer, a project sponsored by the D-Trip now to try to get young people involved integrally and passionately in this election year. We need all hands on deck, because the Democratic Party today is the democracy party. Yeah. FDR used to call us the democracy, and that's really who we are at this point.
All right, Congressman Jamie Raskin, the memoir Unthinkable is out now. We talked about it at length on my podcast, Why Is This Happening? That will be out next week. You're also, Congressman Raskin, the subject of a new MSNBC Films documentary, Love and the Constitution, which is premiering here Sunday, February 6th. Congressman, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Really?
And thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Really?
Our coverage of what happened a year ago has never truly ended. We cover it every single night. The ongoing
You do cover it every single night. That's exactly the point, Chris. That's all you do on MSNBC. It's all you can talk about is Trump.
All
you can talk about is Trump.
January 6th, as it happened, the first-hand accounts of those who survived it, as they honor those
I
who did not.
survived it.
Had those officers not held that line.
Oh my God.
I would not have met my son, Cameron.
Oh, for crying out loud. No one was going to come and kill you, please. That is such a
For
lie.
me, January 6th,
Literally no one was going to come and kill you.
So much.
That was not going to happen.
I see it as a father, as somebody who.
How much you want to bet he wasn't even in the
mine,
building on January 6th?
always been committed
Anyone
to
want to
making
Google
sure
that?
my
How much
boys
you want to
knew
bet he
me.
wasn't even in the building?
And so to the Signick family, I'll
Yeah,
say
no
to
one
you,
even knows who he is.
your son's sacrifice allowed me to meet mine.
Wow. The only one whose
Vision
life
works.
was sacrificed on January 6th was, of course, Ashley Babbitt. That's it. That's the only one who was sacrificed on January 6th. That's it. No one else died. At least of like unnatural causes. All right, guys, we have finished Joy Reid for the night. She was as good as could be expected. I'm just going to keep streaming for a while. Maybe we'll get up to Rachel Maddow. How would you guys like to watch some Rachel Maddow tonight? I haven't watched Rachel Maddow in like 2 years. Year and a half, 2 years, something like that. But if you guys are enjoying the stream, please make sure you mount that like button. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I am planning on doing regular Joy Reid watch parties. It looks like 87% of you do think that there is going to be crying tonight on MSNBC. Oh, can I show off my tattoo? Okay. I don't know if okay, so the tattoo artist is not done yet. It's not done yet. Okay. The tattoo is not done yet. I've just had 2 sessions. But it's looking pretty slick. Hang on. Yeah, see? So we just did the outside today, and then the next session, he's going to turn this ball into a bright ball of fire that looks like the sun. This session hurt, man. I'm not going to lie. It hurt bad. It hurt bad. He had to spray my skin with something that, like, numbed it. There are better pictures in my locals. If you guys want to join my locals, go to kb.locals.com. Bing! You can join for free. You can see the pictures for free. If you do want to support the work I'm doing, please consider becoming a supporter at kb.locals.com/support. I think I pinned it to the top of the chat in YouTube, and you get an extra bonus if you become a supporter now, which is you're going to get to see some of my private collection of January 6 videos that I've never posted publicly. I took a bunch of videos when I was at the Capitol on January 6. I have posted some of them, the better ones, in my locals. There's nothing going on in the ones I didn't post. It's just like there's some videos that are just have more stuff going on in them than others. I didn't go in the building. The FBI's already interviewed me. But if you want to see some of my personal private collection of January 6 videos, they're exclusively for my local supporters right now. No, Rachel, the sun isn't finished. It took longer than he thought. So we're going to have to do another session, which is fine. I would much rather he like it be beautiful than it be done quickly. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a sleeve. I'm investing in this. It's a very talented tattoo artist. He was thinking about dropping by the stream. Maybe he did, and I haven't seen him yet. I'll give him a shout out if I see him in the chat, but he's super, super, super talented, and I'm really enjoying the process of this tattoo. He does a great, like, his portfolio is so fucking good. And he's a really cool guy, and I'm trying to get him to come to Porkfest. I think he's going to come to Porkfest. But hopefully we'll have a lot of we'll have a whole tattoo done by the time but it's like, it looks sick, man. Like, look at it. Look at it. The middle's not done, just the outside this time. It's gonna be a big ball of fiery sun. Look at that. It's beautiful. It's gonna be sick. I'm so excited about the sleeve. I've wanted a sleeve like this my entire life, basically, and I'm finally treating myself. Oh, it was painful though, man. All right, guys, we're going to keep watching MSNBC. They're coming back. Let's see what Chris Hayes has got to say.
Lawmakers held a candlelight prayer vigil.
Oh my God, a candlelight fucking vigil.
And honoring those who defended the Capitol and those who lost their lives. It's been a day full of remembrances in commemoration of the worst attack on American democracy, frontally at least, since the Civil War. But as President Joe Biden noted in a speech delivered in Statuary Hall at the Capitol, in order to really comprehend what happened 1 year ago, you have to bring yourself back to the terror of that day.
We should. I like referring to it as Insurrection Day or Liberty Day.
The Bible tells us
That's a good question.
We shall know the truth, and the truth shall make us free. We shall know the truth. Well, here is the God's truth. about January 6, 2021.
Tell it to me, Joe. Do it.
Close your eyes. Go back to that day.
We're having imaginary time.
What do you
okay.
see?
We're playing pretend. Those doors are electric. How did they open their electric doors?
Rioters rampaging.
They're walking up
Waving
a flight of
for the
stairs.
first time inside this Capitol. Confederate flag that symbolized the cause to destroy America.
Okay, I'm gonna do new poll. New poll. New poll. Hang on. Oh, well, let me do. Okay.
What else do you see?
Was the
Come
guy
Breaking
holding
windows,
the Confederate
kicking in
flag?
doors, breaching the Capitol. American
A
flags on
Fed.
poles being used as weapons, as spears.
Yes. No.
Fire extinguishers being thrown.
Cast your
at the
votes
heads
now.
of police
YouTube, was he a
officers.
Fed or not? In my locals, you can see my
saw with
video
our
of the
own
Capitol
eyes.
Police not doing shit, standing around,
Rioters
not doing
menaced these
nothing.
halls, threatening the life of the Speaker of the House, literally erecting gallows to hang the Vice President of the United States of America.
Can I speak to Pelosi? Yeah, we're coming.
That's actually hilarious. I hadn't seen that before. Oh yeah, that was definitely a real gallows. Oh my god.
Using them.
Feds. That's not a Trump supporter. Sorry, that's not a Trump supporter. Bluff call.
Please be advised there are masks under your seats. Please grab a mask, place it in your lap, and be prepared to don your mask in the event that we get a breach.
When the order came to evacuate, I stayed behind for a while until two Republicans came up to me. One of them said, "You can't let them see you. I know these people."
Bullshit. I bet
can talk
Adam
to these
Schiff was
people. I
like
can
the
talk my way
first
through these
person
people.
out of that room.
I remember every moment vividly. I viscerally feel the pounding on the gallery doors.
We want Trump! We want Trump! I know violence!
It's too late for that.
That is not a Trump
the
supporter.
shot
Not a
ringing
Trump
out.
supporter. Please.
I replay how I made plans to use my gas mask and my cane, newly at my side from a 5-week-old knee replacement surgery.
That's not newly
to
at your
fight back if
side.
attacked. And I remember not knowing if I would make it out of our seat of democracy alive or if our democracy itself would survive.
1776! You're afraid of Antifa? Well, guess what? America showed up!
That was actually kind of rad. Not that I condone it. I just think what he said was rad.
Until like many of you.
Someone
with
gonna
many of
cry?
you
Someone gonna
being
cry?
luckily a former linebacker standing next to me, we had to contemplate actually defending the floor of the House of Representatives. And at that point,
Oh,
I thought
like
about
that
what
guy's
it
not
meant.
defending nothing, please.
Was I willing to die?
I could take
for
on
my
that
country?
guy.
Was I willing to die?
I would
to make
take on
sure
that guy like I took on the guy at the
democracy
school board meeting. They got me this no
And at
trespass
that
letter. We'll talk
time,
about this in a
around
second.
this
We'll
time
talk about
last
this over
year,
the commercial.
I said yes. Yes, I would.
We're outnumbered. There's a million of us out there, and we are listening to Trump. You're the boss.
What the extremists who roamed these halls targeted was not only the lives of elected
Kamala looks like
leaders.
she's gonna cry.
What they sought to degrade and destroy was not only a building.
Remember that Kamala
hallowed
Harris and Joe
as it
Biden,
is.
neither of them made any
What they
sort of
were
public statement
assaulting
when they pulled out of
were the
Afghanistan and created
institutions,
that colossal
the
clusterfuck.
values,
But they
the
can speak today.
ideas that generations of Americans have marched, picketed, and shed blood to establish
It's a rad picture. You're never
and
going to convince me
defend.
otherwise. That's a rad picture. Don't care. You'll
1 year
never
later,
convince
the
me
fight
otherwise.
for
That was a badass
democracy is
picture.
far from over. I'll speak with a member of Congress who lived through the horror of the 6 and is warning about what is yet to come next.
My God. All right, let's mute this
Why
up.
does
Let's mute this up. Guys, so side note, for those of you who joined after the first 15 minutes of the stream, this has nothing to do with January 6th. I just think some of you are going to find it funny. So you know those school board meetings that I've been going to? I got an official no trespass notice. I'm not allowed at any future school board meetings from this particular town. And the reason I'm not allowed at any future school board meetings, and they literally say this, that is because I'm associated with certain hashtags. I'm associated with hashtags on social media, and that is why I'm not allowed to attend school board meetings anymore. The association with hashtags, including hashtags I've never used. They say I'm associated with the hashtag school board tyrants. I've never used that hashtag. They said I was associated with tyrants have addresses. I have used that hashtag. They also said I was associated with make tyrants afraid again. I have indeed used that hashtag. We're going to talk about more about this little no trespass order tomorrow, I'm sure. I just think this is funny. I think this is great. Yeah, I think in order to challenge them, I think I need to get myself arrested and I need to go ask the judge. Well, they also said in the order that I don't live in New Hampshire. Like, I literally do live in New Hampshire. I've lived in New Hampshire over 10 years. So guys, if you are in my locals, I posted the full copy, or at least this section right here, which lists my many crimes, of what I did to get banned from a school board meeting. I was a goody two-shoes the entire time I was growing up. Never did anything wrong. Never been arrested. Have gone to the highest level of schooling that I can possibly go to. They didn't even refer to me as Dr. Borisenko in this letter. At least that stupid website article about me referred to me as Dr. Borisenko. They didn't even refer to me with my PhD. I'm going to demand from now on all leftists call me Dr. Borisenko. That's what I'm going to do. And now I've been, as soon as I start using hashtags the left doesn't like and going to school board meetings and making statements of fact, which is school board members' addresses are public record, you elected officials, I get banned from school board meetings. Yeah, Anne-Marie, I've arrived if I'm prohibited from attending school board meetings. You know what I'm going to do? The next school board meeting that the libertarians go to, I'm live streaming that shit. Don't think I won't. Don't think, school board, that I'm not sending reinforcements to carry on my legacy. I may not have been the first person to say we know where you live, but my legacy will survive. Even if I do not overcome this no trespass order, my legacy will survive at that school board meeting. It's all Jeremy Kaufman's fault. Why does Jeremy not get banned? I'm always the one that gets in trouble for things. Jeremy Kaufman said it before me. Bill Barger said it before me. God. Yeah, exactly. I should. Matt Walsh has never gotten banned from a school board meeting. My God. They said I didn't live in New Hampshire. They said, in addition, you and many others of a group who attended the school board meetings are neither citizens nor taxpayers in the district and or New Hampshire. I am provably a taxpayer in New Hampshire. God damn it. Lied to get a no trespass order. This is my life now. This is what happens when you talk on the internet about what you think. Never done anything wrong in your life. All of a sudden, it's all fun and games till you're banned from attending school board meetings. Well, guys, you can read that full letter in my locals right now at kb.locals.com. Bing! But let's tune back into Insurrection Day.
A simple, solemn commemoration of what happened and a collective, unified determination to never let anything like that ever happen again. But I'm even more worried now. Donald Trump is now defining fealty to him by one thing and one thing only. Are you willing to install him into power regardless of the vote count? And so now every Republican politician and elected officials, secretaries of state, county elections commissioners, United States Senate candidates have to promise to put Trump above democracy itself. And many are doing it. They are now organizing the next coup in plain sight. So this week, we commemorate the fallen. We thank everyone who came to democracy's defense across the country and in our great capital city. But we know that this was round one. We know that authoritarians rarely give up, and we know that they aren't doing their preparation for the next coup in hiding. They are doing it all in plain sight, and they must be stopped.
Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii
They
standing
must
exactly
be
where he was a year
stopped.
ago today, inside the Senate.
Those
as rioters
Republicans
stormed
are
the Capitol,
political enemies.
warning
They
that
must
American
be
democracy
stopped.
itself is at stake.
And the only way to
Senator
stop
Schatz
them is by
joins me
fortifying
live
voting
tonight.
rights. That's it.
I talked to
Fortifying
Congressman
the
Jamie Raskin
elections.
over on the House side today, and I'm curious your reaction to the day and whether there were a lot of Republican senators around.
Matt Walsh didn't get banned, please. Do not
Republican
give Matt
senators
Walsh
are
as
not
much credit
around
as I
now.
have. Matt Walsh did not get banned.
My good old friend and colleague, Johnny Isaacson, his funeral was today, so 30 of the Republican senators are in Atlanta, Georgia for that purpose, but 20 are not. And I just think it's noteworthy that there was not a single Republican United States senator in the building.
I thought as I was watching that speech,
Not even Ted
that
Cruz.
One,
Because
there
he
was a
learned his
chance
lesson
to do
yesterday, I
something
think.
right afterwards, which was that the president was impeached for a second time, the first time in American history. It was the largest bipartisan vote of impeachment and the largest bipartisan vote for conviction, but not the threshold. And one of the punishments that you could have dealt out had he been, convicted in the Senate was just barred from future office. And I wonder if you think about that at all and how different things might look in America had Republicans understood that that was their opportunity to sort of like cauterize this wound.
Yeah, that could have been it. They could have just used that opportunity to get rid of Trump. They used him as an instrument to get their Supreme Court justices installed, to get their tax cuts done, and then they could have thrown him on the ash heap of history, having achieved a bunch of right-wing goals, but basically saying, we're going to draw the line at democracy itself. They did not draw the line at democracy itself. They have tethered themselves to him. They had that opportunity. That offer was proffered. But remember, at that time, Mitch McConnell was still in charge of the United States Senate. And so those articles of impeachment were not going to be dealt with until we took the gavels several weeks later. So that would have been their opportunity. And I think looking back on it, many of them probably wish they had gone through with it because they wouldn't have had to deal with him ever again.
That night when everyone came back and reconvened for the vote, I remember thinking that the mood was bizarre. There was a kind of strange jocularity to it. And I think it was just how people were processing what had happened. There was, solemnity when everyone came back, but then, a lot of jokes. And Lindsey Graham said, I'm off the train. And, Ben Sass did a monologue about how awesome it is to shovel your neighbor's driveway when it snows. I remember thinking that it hadn't sunk in then. And I wonder a year later, do you feel it has sunk into the body?
No. I think it has sunk in for many of us. I think it's sunk in for Ben Sass. I think it's sunk in for Mitt Romney and others. But there are others who are, whistling past the graveyard. I think they really are dancing on the edge of overturning the American experiment. And I don't understand their justification.
These people are
on a human
unhinged
level, on a
from
moral
all
level.
manner of reality.
To stay in office in the United States Senate, it is the greatest honor of my life professionally, but nothing is worth that. And why be a United States Senator if you're going to be a party to overturning democracy itself? A lot of these people ran for office. They ran for mayor or secretary of state or lieutenant governor or governor, because they actually wanted to help their community. And now they're sitting there all privately telling us, this guy's insane, this guy's an autocrat. But if it's not me in office, it's going to be someone even crazier than me.
Did
And
he
that's
just say that Republican senators are telling Democratic senators that Trump is an autocrat? Please, liar, liar, pants on fire, Hawaii senator. I don't believe that for one, except if it's Mitt Romney. Then Mitt Romney's probably saying it, but no one else is saying that.
leader of the
Maybe Lindsey Graham. I don't know.
Republican Party. There is no way to win a primary without Donald Trump's endorsement, and there's really no way to get his endorsement unless you promise to install him into power, regardless of how the votes fall.
You called out by name two people, two your colleagues in that speech, Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, both of whom led the effort on the Senate side to volunteer to object to electors based on nothing. A very tortured,
they're allowed to do that.
Constitutional
they're
theory
allowed
that states didn't have
to do that.
They weren't allowed to
just like
their
Democrats
own,
did in
election,
2016
provisions. Those two basically escaped accountability. Like they're
welcome.
They
welcome. Hope you stick around a while.
The coup. Josh Hawley famously gave him the fist to the marchers that morning, and there was some pressure on them for a while, but that seems to have gone away.
I think you've described the situation accurately. They use their fancy educations, their big brains, and their unlimited ambition to at least dance on the edge of, if not go over the line and try to overturn the American experiment. These are people who ought to know better, but they have been overcome with their ambition. And I think one of the failures of official Washington, of pundit Washington, of lobbyist Washington, is that these guys are back in the fold. They're, Ted Cruz is talking about Nord Stream 2. And
I should go
Josh
after the
Hawley
superintendent of this school on
treated
Twitter.
as like a thoughtful
Christopher Kellen, you're going to be hearing
they
from me,
shouldn't
Christopher.
be allowed in the door.
Also, it's
in
nothing to do
terms
with
of
what they're
public
talking about. I'm
policy
bored by this
if
guy.
they're not willing to stipulate to the basic premise that whoever gets the most votes gets to take the office.
Guys, should we direct questions
Yeah,
to Christopher
that
Keller,
basic premise,
superintendent?
is really under assault, and it's
In
kind of the whole
Plastow?
ballgame at a certain level. Senator Brian Schatz, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
1 year since the attack, just 10 months to the midterms. What needs to be done before November ahead?
Oh, sweet. Another
As many
subscriber.
of you know,
Welcome.
for me personally, the path forward after January 6th has not been an easy one.
Maury, sorry about
It's been
that.
made more painful, however,
I'll remember next
by
time.
the fact that most of our colleagues on the other side
Any other
of
new
the aisle
subscribers tonight, guys?
continue
Let me know
to
if you're a new
accommodate
subscriber on my channel. Welcome.
that big lie that was the predicate for the attack
You got a lot to
on
catch
our
up
country.
on.
To
I can be a little
truly
much,
protect
just so you know.
our
I can be a lot.
democracy, we need truth. Truth is clear as this shard of broken glass
Sweet. What is the
that I
name?
have
Thank you for
carried
subscribing. Appreciate
with
it.
me for the last 365 days. Glass that I picked up from a broken window in the Capitol in the aftermath of
He
January
carries
6th
around
as
a
a reminder,
piece of
constant
broken
reminder in
glass.
my pocket of the brutality of that day.
Is it back? Back?
We must have truth. We must have accountability.
Is that it? Oh, bacon. So, guys, welcome if you're a new subscriber on my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? I stream every day of the week on the channel now from Sunday through Thursday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I stream at 5 p.m. except for today because I was getting a tattoo today. So I'm streaming a little bit later. But just so you guys know, actually, let's do a little promo, shall we? Let's do a little promo because I got something special coming up tomorrow on my other channel, which is youtube.com/activelyunwoke. You can find that in the description below. But I have something special coming up on my second channel tomorrow, which is we are going to be doing happy hour on my second channel. And we are going to be watching and mocking relentlessly the Democratic Socialist Convention of 2019, which I am assured is an insanity of wokeness that we will never, ever, ever, ever overcome. But maybe we will if we have enough beer. Now, it's going to be snowing tomorrow in New Hampshire, where I am, where I live, regardless of what this no trespass order from the school board says I don't live in New Hampshire. I do live in New Hampshire. But we will be passing the time as it snows outside by watching the Democratic Socialist Convention from 2019. We will be drinking some beer. We will be having some fun. That's at 5 p.m. tomorrow on my second channel, Actively Unwoke. Please make sure you subscribe. The information is down there somewhere. All right. Let's see. I just want to make sure I have MSNBC on my screen so that I know when it comes back from break. Sometimes we do MSNBC reaction streams just for fun. Just for fun. Because watching MSNBC can be a little crazy. So we like to do it with social support. Guys, where are you watching from tonight? Chat in. Let me know where you're watching from. Just so you know, I am also streaming on Odyssey. I am also streaming on Rockfin. Just in case we get kicked off YouTube, we have alternatives. Thank you to the Capitalist Pig over on Odyssey for that super chat. Says televangelism for progressives. I don't know, what are super chats called on Odyssey? I know instead of the thumbs up, they have the fire, the flame, as it were. I don't know what super chats are called though. But thank you guys for the support over on Odyssey. I really appreciate it. When I got banned from the school board, I was carrying on the legacy of Odyssey and Library founder Jeremy Kaufman, who also lives in New Hampshire. It's Jeremy's fault. It's not my fault. I was carrying on Jeremy's legacy. Jeremy got me banned from school board meetings. That's all right. I feel pretty good about it. Looks like we have some people in Salt Lake City, DC, Texas, in communistic California. Northern VA, a lot of people in Virginia tonight. Illinois, Norfolk, Virginia. Lots going on tonight in Virginia, apparently. How many people was anyone here actually at the Capitol? If you're new to me, I was at the Capitol on January 6th. You can actually see some of my video from the Capitol on kb.locals.com. You can also actually see some of it on Gitter because I'm trying to build up my audience on Gitter. I had a great video today. Maybe we should look at that. Hang on. Let me look at that real quick. Let's watch my video from Gitter today because it was actually pretty great. I took this video of, it was earlier in the day on January 6th, and I just think you guys are really going to appreciate it. So this is my Gitter profile, gitter.com/Carlin. But look at this video I took. This is a video that you're not going to see on any mainstream media. This is Trump supporters in the Lincoln Memorial on January 6th, 1 year ago, singing God Bless America. Let's have a little palate cleanser before we go back to MSNBC. Check this out. This was beautiful. How great was that? That is from my personal private collection of videos that I took on January 6th. You can see more of those videos by becoming a supporter of my locals today, kb.locals.com/support. Let's get back to MSNBC, shall we? Looks like they've come back from break.
Doors behind us. Climbing over chairs and under rails, not sure where the rioters were and if we were going fast enough to escape them.
I remember I was laying on the floor and I had just a very little bit of juice left in my cell phone. And I wanted to call my husband, I wanted to call Stan. I was afraid to say, I love you, because it harkened back to September 11th.
Oh my God.
So I just said, I'm all right. Tell the kids I'm all right. They are going to get us out of here. And I hung up the phone.
I reflect on that day being trapped in the gallery, ultimately praying for all of our safety and peace in our nation. I also reflect on just how close we were to losing it, to losing our democracy. Those of us trapped in the gallery, we lived it, ducking, crawling under, over railings, hands, knees, the sounds, the smells.
Oh, you ducked under a railing?
We had a front row seat.
You ducked under a railing? I got fucking tear gassed. I had to lay on the ground and cover my whole face for several minutes because the guy in front of me got hit in the head with a tear gas canister.
To witnesses, and today we are messengers. We reflect on the fact that January 6th was about so much
These
more
poor
than an
snowflakes.
effort to
My
break into
God,
a
I
building.
got fucking tear gassed on
It was an
January
effort
6th.
to break down our
I
institutions.
didn't cry like a little girl.
A year later on this sober anniversary, the question of what American democracy will be is very much an open one. Democrats have 10 months until the next election to save it.
Was that it? Are we going to... God damn it. That was like a brief interlude if I've ever seen one. Patrice says, she's a ton older than you, Carlin. Her knees can't take it. Man. Guys, just so you know, if you join my locals community tonight, you can come to our bitchcraft that we have on Saturday at 3 p.m. You can come and do crafts. I'll be knitting. I still need to post a goddamn official announcement. I do have an announcement for it in locals. I just haven't done it specifically, but there is an announcement up. It's the second Saturday of the month. Hopefully some people come to Who in my locals is going to come to Bitchcraft on Saturday at 3 p.m.? This is insane. I used to watch, by the way, MSNBC all the time. Every night. Every night. Every night. I forced my husband to watch it. God bless him. Looks like Sin will be coming to Bitchcraft on Saturday. Patrice will be coming to Bitchcraft on Saturday. You guys, you can join us now. Come on over, kb.locals.com/support. You'll also get access to all of my January 6 videos that I posted there today. Rachel's going to come. Brooks maybe will make an appearance. Alexander, that's okay. That's all right. Judy's going to come. Emily's going to come. We're going to have lots of people. Nick H is going to come. It's not going to be an all-woman affair. Nick H will bring the testosterone. But I do have the best community on all of locals. I really do. We do 2 community Zoom calls every single week. We have a great old time. Guys, what do you think so far of the coverage on MSNBC? Has it been everything that you hoped it would be? I don't know how I used to watch this stuff. It's like I question, did it get worse, or was it always this bad and I just didn't understand it was this bad? Yes, Andrea, you can quilt. You can do anything during Bitchcraft. You can quilt, you can knit, you can crochet, you can sew, you can draw. Occasionally people clean their guns. Sometimes they do stained glass. Oh, George is coming too. Excellent. Lots of people will be for Bitchcraft. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. MSNBC is wild. It is wild to watch it now. For those of you who are new to me, a little bit of my backstory is that I was a Democrat for 20 years. I woke up and red-pilled about 2 years ago, and I realized how much I was lied to by the media. And I comment a lot on the media and how much they lie to people. And it really is amazing when you wake up. It's like your whole world changes. Your whole world changes. Am I going to unblock you on Twitter? Well, you need to email me and ask me very nicely and here's how you get unblocked by me on Twitter. You email me through my website, drcarlin.com/contact. The link is in the description below. You tell me why I blocked you and you're honest about it, because I'm going to look. And you tell me what your handle is. And if you email me and tell me what your handle is and admit to the reason that I blocked you in the first place, and don't say I didn't do anything. Don't say I was just being nice and you just blocked me. I have no idea what I did wrong. You know what you fucking did, please. I never block anyone who does nothing. But admit to what you did wrong and we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I will unblock people, but they have to own what they did was wrong. Usually it has to do with insulting me or calling me like a fat cow or like a lesbian slur, even though I'm not a lesbian. Usually it has to do with that. All right. They're coming back. Let's see. Let's see what Biden's saying.
You can't obey the law only when it's convenient. You can't be patriotic when you embrace and enable lies. Those who stormed this Capitol, and those who instigated and incited, and those who
I haven't blocked
called
anyone
them
on my
to
other
do so,
channel.
held a dagger at the throat of America and American democracy.
That dagger at the throat of American democracy that President Biden invoked at the Capitol today is still right there. Time is ticking. As election lawyer Mark Elias wrote earlier this week, quote, 10 months from the 2022 midterms, it is up to Senate Democrats to decide whether to advance these pro-democracy laws alone or allow Republicans to use the filibuster as the weapon that murdered
The filibuster is white
If these two
supremacy.
voting rights bills fail, our democracy will suffer and may never recover.
They're trying to fortify
Ian
every
Basson served as
future
Associate
election
White
is
House
what's
counsel under
happening. They're
President
trying to
Barack Obama.
fortify
He's a
every
co-founder and
future
executive
election.
Director of Protect Democracy.
Dude,
a
till he's comb his
nonpartisan
hair. He's going to be on
organization
TV.
dedicated to fighting efforts to undermine
I
democracy.
comb my hair when I'm
Heather
on
McGhee is the
TV.
board chair of Color of Change, the nation's largest online racial justice organization, and the author of The Sum of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone and How We
Oh,
Can
good.
Prosper
Racial justice.
Together.
This is exactly what we needed.
Let me start with you, Heather. How are you thinking about these next 10 months?
Had to start with a black woman,
towards
otherwise
these
he's a
midterms,
racist.
Which take on this kind of existential weight that I don't think any midterm
Yeah, Patricia,
election
you're right.
I've
It might be a
ever
piece,
encountered
yeah.
before felt like it took on.
It does, because it feels like because of the baked-in counter-majoritarian weight of and structure of the U.S. Senate,
Counter-majoritarian.
the
That's a
rules
new
that
word.
Republicans at the state level have put into gerrymander the House and to suppress the vote, we have a situation where we are looking at a question of, do we have a pro-democracy, not a Democratic Party, a pro-democracy party? Because we only have one of those, sadly, in this two-party system right now, that is willing to do everything to preserve the American experiment. And so I agree with the idea that
The
there's
Democrats are
there
the
10
only
months
people
here
who
that
care
we
about
have.
preserving America.
And obviously, the thing that's standing in the way is an arcane Senate rule that allows people who represent 41 million fewer people than the Democratic Party to hold up a set of democracy reforms that have nearly supermajority
Oh no, the
support.
filibuster allows people who are not Democrats to have influence. Oh no, we can't have that. That's literally what she just said. She was like, this allows people who are not in the Democratic Party to have influence, and we can't have that.
Here's where we are.
That's white supremacy. If non-Democrats have influence, it's white supremacy.
We've been round and round in circles, obviously, on this for a very long time. They're pushing again. There's questions about the conversations in Cinema and Manchin. People who are close to this effort will point out that there has been tremendous progress already made in the number of senators who have come over to the side of rules change for this purpose, which is significant and you shouldn't lose sight of. Ian, how are you thinking from your perch about these sort of next 10 months in the context of preserving these bulwarks of democratic representation?
Well, clearly, step one next week is the filibuster, and I think we should understand a couple of core facts about it. First, we are the only advanced democracy in the world that now effectively has a supermajority requirement for basic legislation. Second, contrary to arguments that the
You do
filibuster
not have a
fosters
supermajority
bipartisanship,
requirement
it's
for
the exact
legislation. You have a
opposite.
requirement that you work with people who don't agree with you. That is what the requirement is. That is why the filibuster exists. It's to force you to work with people who don't agree with you so you don't pass crazy shit. That is the entire purpose of the Senate, is to force you to work with people who don't agree with you so you don't pass crazy shit. If you didn't act like progressive, insane people with your legislation, you'd have a lot easier time passing it.
It's only in the past 12 years that the filibuster's been abused that America's lost its shine in the world. And
Been
lastly,
abused many
we have
times by
been
the
here
Democrats.
before. After the passage of the 15th Amendment, guaranteeing African Americans the right to vote, Southern Democrats imposed all manner of restrictions, from poll taxes to literacy
Guys, I'm
tests
drinking
to
just
Florida.
plain old
So
Sam
in
Adams Boston
1890,
Lager tonight, if you're
Republicans
curious.
in the House passed the Lodge Act, which would have created a federal backstop
'Cause, like, why
to
not?
prevent
Let's
Southern
have a
attacks
couple
on
beers.
democracy.
We're gonna
It
have
was
beers tomorrow at happy
filibustered
hour
by
too.
segregationists in the
Yes.
Senate and died. And with it, democracy died in the American South for the next 75 years. We cannot
What?
let that happen
They
again.
elected non-Democrats. Oh my
great,
God, democracy
precedent to
died.
cite
They're
there,
not
and I
electing
had sort
Democrats
of
anymore.
encountered that before, but had kind of forgotten about that specific 1890 fight over this. And I think also it's important, Heather. I mean, my perspective on this is, in politics in general, in American politics and democratic struggle, small d democratic struggle, there's no permanent victories, no permanent defeats. And I think it's important for people to understand that in this context, because the work's got to continue. Like, I mean, this idea that people have to be engaged at the ground level, in a state of kind of quasi-permanent emergency is a hard thing to hear, but I think the truth.
Yeah, cherry wheat's a good
No,
beer.
it's
I like cherry
absolutely
wheat
true.
a lot.
I mean,
I
this,
do.
if you coming, I feel like the Black community understands this in a very visceral way, right? Because the idea that we have this democracy that has always been so free and fair, and it's been snatched away.
Guys, we're about to go
just
into
in
Rachel
the
Maddow.
past number
Who's
of
ready
years.
for
Obviously
Rachel
not our truth, right?
Maddow?
It's not the historical
Who's
truth.
ready
It
for
is not the
Rachel
truth that
Maddow?
we viscerally have lived and our parents and grandparents have lived. And so that sort of constant vigilance is so necessary. And if you zoom back, I think it's really important, and I wrote about this today in a Medium post. I think it's so important to remember that the core logic of January 6th and of the big lie is a racial one, right? It is the lie of the racial zero
there it is
sum.
again.
President Biden alluded to this in his
How many
speech
of you
today,
watched
this
Rachel Maddow
idea
recently?
that
I
there's
haven't watched her in
only
like
so
a year
much
and a half.
democracy to go around, that we are in this battle for supremacy. And so if people of color vote, that must be sort of stealing something that is rightfully
What are you
the
talking about?
province
Trump
of
got
white
more.
people. Like, that's
Trump
the
got a
core logic.
larger
It's great
percentage of the
University
black
Chicago
vote than
study
any other Republican in
about the
history.
insurrectionists
Hang
and
on.
what is their core ideology.
She's
What
saying
drove
if
them.
black people vote, then Republicans are afraid of that. Trump got more of the black vote than any other Republican in history.
Idea of the great replacement, the idea that as people of color gain more rights, those will come at the expense of white people. Now, obviously,
What
that
rights
idea
don't
is
you
being
have?
sold, right?
What
Packaged and marketed.
rights don't
The
you
same
have?
people who
List
fund
for
the
me
Stop the Steal
one
movement
single
and were
right that
funding
you do
ongoing
not
attacks
have.
on our
What
democracy are
rights
the
don't
ones
you
who
have?
win financially when Republicans stay in power despite losing the majority of votes, because that is the economic payoff for the money to
What
lead that has
rights
been
don't you
funding
have?
this racism
never
as
give
a way to
specifics,
drive their
ever.
greed. And ultimately, we are at a real inflection point. Do we understand that the racial zero sum has always been the Achilles of our democracy, or not?
Ian Basson and Heather McGee, great to have you both on this night. That is all in for this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show starts right now. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Chris. Thanks,
Rachel's
my friend.
gonna
Much
cry.
appreciated.
She's gonna cry. Oh God, her
and
bags
thanks to
under her
everyone
eyes
for
have
joining us
gotten
this
bad.
hour.
Oh
The
my
chief federal
God.
judge in the
Poor
district
Rachel
court in
Maddow.
Washington, D.C. made a ruling tonight concerning one of the defendants who is facing felony criminal charges for his alleged role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol a year ago today.
What is that?
The judge handed down her ruling
Look at those
tonight in the
bags
form of
under
what's
her
called
eyes.
a
Holy
minute
shit.
order, which means it's short. And in this case, it's short like poetry is short. It's short like I think I might commit this to memory and sing it to myself in the shower one day. Here it is in its entirety. Minute order. As to defendant Anthony Robert Williams, denying defendant's motion for permission to travel. Defendant, while on pretrial release and facing charges including a serious felony offense stemming from his
What did
alleged
he do?
actions on January 6,
Does anyone know what he
2021,
did?
wishes to leave the Michigan winter to spend 10 days in the warmer climes of Jamaica to meet the family of a woman with whom defendant has been in a committed relationship for, quote, more than a year. And then the footnote in the minute order indicates that that more than a year is a quote from what he said about himself in his motion where he asked for permission to travel to Jamaica. More than a year. The judge continues, quote, although such a meeting may be an important step in defendant's personal relationship, defendant surrendered his entitlement to unfettered international travel when, also more than a year ago, he allegedly announced his intent to storm the swamp. And on January 6, 2021, he followed through by joining a mob at the Capitol that, in his words, took that effing building.
Isn't this racist?
An event he allegedly
Like if
viewed
he's
as
trying
the,
to
quote,
visit someone in
proudest day
Jamaica,
of
like
his
isn't it
life.
racist to prevent him from
This
visiting
court will
Jamaica?
not commemorate the one-year anniversary of this attack on the Capitol by granting defendant's request for non-essential foreign travel while he is awaiting judgment for his actions on that day. In other words, no, you cannot go to Jamaica. Signed, the Chief Judge
Well, that
of Federal
seems
District
pretty
Court
racist
in
to me.
Washington,
My
D.C.
God.
So no, that particular January 6th defendant who is facing at least one felony charge that could get him 20 years in prison, there he is, for his role in the Trump supporters mob attack on the Capitol on January 6th. No, the court is not giving him special permission to go spend
Turd
10
Ferguson,
days
I was thinking the same
sunning
thing.
himself
Like,
in
how did they
Jamaica.
know? How did this school
Although I am
board?
sure it
I
is
know.
lovely
Side
there
note:
this time
how
of
did
year.
this school board know where to deliver this trespass
That
order
is
to me
the,
if they didn't think
very
I lived in New
brief,
Hampshire?
very
Like,
memorable order handed down tonight.
it literally has
in
my New
Federal
Hampshire
District Court in
address on, and they're
Washington,
saying I
DC.
don't live in New Hampshire in it.
You know, I used to have this sort of pat answer I would give when people asked me about times that were particularly bad, particularly bleak for our country, especially in terms of politics. You know, something unusually bad would happen.
God, Trump
some
aged
faction in
Rachel
our politics
Maddow.
would
He
sink to
really
some
did.
new low.
He aged her
And if
severely.
anybody asked me about just how bad things had become,
It's like,
for
she
a
not
long
wearing makeup
time-
tonight or
I regret
something?
this now, but for a long time I had this sort of go-to kind of glib response where I'd say some version of, you know, hey, listen, we always think it's the worst it has ever been, but members of Congress aren't exactly beating one another with canes on the floor of the Senate
I think it would be
anymore.
pretty fucking
It's
insane
been
if
worse.
members of Congress were beating each other with canes. I think
used
that
to
would
say
be
that all the time.
awesome.
And
How
the
many
point
people?
of that, I believe it still does stand.
How many
right?
people
However bad we think
want?
things
Okay, you guys
are.
definitely think that guy with the Confederate
We
flag was
are
a
a country
Fed.
that had a civil
78% of
war,
you think that guy was a
where
Fed.
we Americans massed as opposing armies and
Okay, new
killed
poll.
hundreds of thousands of each other. We
New
are a country
poll.
that spent hundreds of
Do
years
you
enslaving
want
people.
senators
here, right?
beating
We
each
have
other
been through
with
the bottomlands,
canes
absolutely.
on the floor of the Senate?
And no, as bad as things get in Washington and as badly as they degrade even in Congress, we are not seeing these days a member
Yes
of Congress
or no?
beat
Poll
a
in
U.S.
YouTube.
senator with a cane on the Senate floor.
I think that'd be fabulous. Bleeding Sumner.
That happened on May 22nd, 1856.
Bleeding Sumner.
Senator Charles Sumner was the victim.
Boom.
He was a radical Republican.
American
he was
history
radically
minor.
opposed to slavery. He was
That
the
American
leader
history
of the
minor came in-
abolitionist voices in the United States Senate.
Came in handy.
Senator Sumner was sitting at his desk in the Senate chamber, alone. He was writing.
There's a statue
Chamber was
for him
almost
in
empty.
Harvard
There's
Square.
nobody in the gallery. And 3 Southern pro-slavery congressmen came into the Senate chamber looking for him. 2 of them were to keep anybody else, any observers, any would-be rescuers, from helping out or from interfering in any way. While the other one, without warning, just started smashing Senator Sumner over the
They
head
were
over
Democrats.
and over again with the
Here's what
heavy
Rachel's not going to
metal
tell you.
end of his cane.
They were Democrats. They
It was
were
2 South Carolina
Democrats.
congressmen, 1 Virginia congressman.
Democrats.
One of the 2 South Carolina congressmen who actually wielded the cane against Senator Sumner.
Democrats.
He kept up that beating for so long, so relentlessly, again, with his friends, keeping anyone from intervening and stopping him. He used that weapon against the unarmed senator to the point where he very nearly beat the senator to death. Senator Sumner did
We need to bring back
survive,
duels.
but barely. It took 3
gonna
years
tweet that. That's a
before he
tweet.
was able to come back to the United States Senate. Senator Sumner was hurt so badly.
We need to bring back
That was something
duels.
serious and terrible enough, even more than 160 years later, that it is nothing
post
to
that
be
on
glib
Gitter,
about.
too.
It is nothing to be short about, even to make an otherwise valid point. But today, one of the things that happened at the Capitol to commemorate the January 6th attack last year is that the House hosted the Librarian of Congress, who you see there on your left, and 2 very, very famous historians. who
John
you see at the
Meacham is
center on the right of your screen here.
MSNBC's in-house historian.
To talk about the
That's a
history of what
Democrat
happened on
historian. Well,
January
both of them
6th,
are
how to make
Democrats.
sure
but
that history gets preserved, how
John
to make
Meacham
sure
is
that attack
MSNBC's
gets
historian.
told for the purposes of history, how to make sure it gets told accurately in history. And the historian Doris Kearns Goodwin, at that event today, she brought up the caning of Senator Charles Sumner and Preston Brooks, the man who very nearly killed the senator on the floor of the Senate. And she brought it up today in a way that surprised me. She brought it up because of the unique resonance of that violence, that famous act of violence, having happened inside the Capitol. That happened inside Congress, the way the violence happened inside Congress on January 6th. We have had a lot of violence in this country. We have had a lot of political violence in this country. But inside the Congress, inside the Capitol, that resonates in a different way in this country. Just watch this. Watch what Doris Kearns Goodwin said today.
I think the chilling thing about the 1850s is when I think of the attack on Senator Sumner, the anti-slavery senator from Massachusetts, by Preston Brooks, the South Carolinian, congressman.
Preston
It
Brooks.
happened
What
in the
party was
Senate,
Preston
and
Brooks in?
because of
Let's just
that, it
Google that real
touched, as
quick.
one historian said, the hearts and minds
Preston
of the American
Brooks,
people in a way. Lots of other
Senator.
anti-slavery people had been attacked before, but somehow it hit home. And there was a sense in which, for
Brooks,
a while,
a Democrat.
more
Preston
people joined
Brooks
the
was a
Republican
Democrat.
Party.
They're not
Abraham
saying
Lincoln
that.
joined it
Preston
after
Brooks
that.
was a
The
Democrat.
moderates and conservatives realized
Confirmed.
they
We'll
had
talk
to
about it on
leave the party
commercial.
structure behind. The Whig Party collapsed. And I thought that was going to happen, that a line had been drawn after January 6th in the same way. Because sometimes these events just touch you, and there's a fundamental sense on the part of the people that something had to change. And we got Abraham Lincoln out of that. The sad, scary
Abraham
part
Lincoln,
of the
Republican?
1850s is that Preston Brooks became a hero in the South. That the governor presented him with a silver goblet. People are running around with canes wanting to get other members of the anti-slavery movement. They'll get Seward next, they said. And it was part of that partisanship of the 1850s where you had alternative realities. Indeed, one historian said, when you saw that event and you saw two alternative narratives, that's when you knew that something was happening to the country. And there's a sense, of course, that there was a partisan press in the 1850s. You know, when Lincoln would be in his
Lincoln,
debates with Stephen
Republican.
Douglas,
Douglas,
and
Democrat.
the Republican paper would be reporting on the very same debate that the Democratic Party would be reporting on. When they report on the Lincoln part of it, they say he was so triumphant, he was carried out on the arms of his supporters. You read the Democratic paper and he fell on the floor. It was so embarrassing that he had to be dragged out.
So
by his
Doris is
supporters.
telling us things
So we
haven't
have
really
some
changed.
of those parallels from the 1850s. And the only hope will be that you're right, it ended badly. I mean, obviously it ended badly with the Civil War, but out of that came what had to be done, which was to undo that original sin of slavery. And those people
she
fought
called
for
them
that. We had a
Southern,
leader
not
in Abraham
Democrats.
Lincoln
You're
who carried us
absolutely
through
right.
that.
She called them
And
Southern,
I think when we look at what
not
happened,
Democrats.
that's what you
Yep,
have
Charles
to
Sumner
remember,
was a
that
Republican.
somehow some of these fights have to be fought.
We're going to look at
But
Preston
hopefully it
Brooks
doesn't
on the
have to end
commercial
up that
break.
way, that
We're
we'll
going to look at
know the
Preston Brooks on the
mistakes we
commercial
made
break.
in the 1850s.
We'll know the mistakes we made. Doris Kearns Goodwin speaking today at the Capitol. She and John Meacham, a fellow esteemed historian and the Librarian of Congress, they led this discussion today for members of Congress on how to get the history right of what happened on January 6th. Talking about that attack on Charles Sumner back in the 1850s. It happened inside Congress. It happened on the floor of the Senate. Talking about how that fact of it grabbed Americans by the proverbial throat. It was a galvanizing thing. It was horrifying.
Rachel
The
Maddow is
barbarity
very
of that
smart in how she
attack
presents
inside the
things.
Congress by
Conservatives
those
could learn from
pro-slavery
how Rachel
congressmen.
Maddow presents
It
things. I'm
drove
just saying.
Americans
I'm not
to
saying
take
I
a
agree with it. I'm
clearer
saying they can learn
side
from it.
against that than they were previously
She's a very good
ready
presenter.
to take. And in that sense, it is, as Doris said, it is part of the story of how we get the leadership of Abraham Lincoln and ultimately the path to the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of slavery. That act of violence, that horrific act of violence in Congress, in the Capitol, galvanizes the country and starts turning history toward what ultimately ends slavery. Because it's so horrifying. But also on Earth too, also here in America, the pro-slavery guy gets treated as such a hero. They literally bought him new canes and sent them to him.
Democrat.
To replace the one that he shattered on the skull of that senator. The pieces of the broken cane that he used to beat Senator Sumner was treated like a religious relic.
Just like
People
Antifa.
wore pieces
He's like the guys, he's like the first
talismans.
Antifa. That's what he is. He's like the first
The
Antifa.
newspapers in the South deified him for nearly murdering the senator that day. They openly wished that Senator Sumner could have been further hurt, that the job could have been finished. That was also the reaction.
Kind of
in
like
America.
you guys right now wishing half the country would just fade off into
That
the
was
sunset.
1856, and of course,
Oh,
by
Rachel Maddow's gonna
1861,
cry. She's
America
gonna cry.
was formally divided into two warring armed factions, and we started killing each other in earnest by the hundreds of thousands. Tonight, there was a prayer vigil on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, a bicameral prayer vigil, both for senators and for members of the House.
I wonder how long it took them to set up all those candles.
Dozens of senators and members of the House gave floor speeches today about the attack and about the need to preserve our democracy in the face of the movement that was behind the attack and that would undo our democracy by force. The right-wing movement that precipitated the attack on January 6th a year ago, of course, still holds sway in the Republican Party. It is already working on the undoing of the next election and the next one after that.
Tim Kaine is
and
aged
members
too.
of
Holy
Congress
shit.
and senators today, all day today, invade against that. President Biden gave a fierce, intense speech today in which he said the Capitol attack a year ago was a
Look at the look
dagger
on her
at the
face where
throat
she says
of
President
democracy.
Biden. She does not like him.
It was also a bit of a collective shudder across the country late today when Politico.com was first to report that at the time that an operable, viable pipe bomb was found just outside Democratic
They
Party
have
headquarters on
yet
January
to
6th last
find
year,
who planted the pipe
Vice
bombs outside the
President-elect Kamala
DNC
Harris
or
was
the
inside the
RNC. Of
building
course, they aren't
when
mentioning
they
that
found
they
the bomb there.
placed
That
a
is
pipe
something we
bomb
did
outside
not
the
know before
RNC
today.
too. They still don't know who planted those bombs.
So in ways,
we have no
good and
information on
bad
who planted those
and
bombs.
uplifting
But
and
there's one outside the
somber
DNC
and prayerful
and
and
the RNC.
angry
I
and
say
scared
Fed.
today. And all these ways today, there was kind of a unified Earth One response. You know, boy, what happened a year ago today on January 6th was terrible.
Who did
How do we
plant
make
those
sure we
bombs?
don't
I would
do
really
that
like to
again?
know who planted those bombs.
But then also today, there's Hillsdale County, Michigan, where tonight the Hillsdale County Republican Party is hosting a fundraiser.
Good
They're
for
calling
them.
it the Insurrection Anniversary
Yes!
Fundraiser.
Smart
Exclamation point
Republicans.
included. They said in their announcement about
Wait,
the
is this
Insurrection
real? Was
Anniversary
Tim Pool just
fundraiser
swatted?
tonight. Food
Is
and
that
drinks
real?
will be provided.
Did that really
We
happen?
actually spoke with the Hillsdale County,
Can
Michigan
someone
Republican
confirm?
Party
Did
tonight.
that really just
They
happen?
told us that they have had
Holy
to change
shit.
their plans for this event a little bit. They were planning to have one of the January 6th rioters Zoom in to participate in their
I
event.
mean, I'm not like
have
the
him
biggest fan of
join,
Tim Pool, but
presumably
that
to
kinda
give everybody a
sucks.
little lift. Unfortunately, he is facing criminal charges due to his participation in the event. And at the last minute, they told us he decided that he shouldn't be the guest of honor at this Republican Party fundraiser right now. Not at least until he's been sentenced. So he's going to wait till his sentence. But maybe they'll have another Insurrection Anniversary celebratory fundraiser next year, and he'll be available then. Does seem
Oh
prudent for him
shit,
to
Tim
wait now
did
to find
actually
out,
put
you know,
that. Tim Pool
prison
tweeted, we just
time.
got swatted. Holy shit.
That was today, too. This was the state capitol in the great state of Missouri today. Kind of a big crowd there.
Yeah, was it by
this is
Jack
under
Murphy?
the rotunda. You see all the chairs set up
Wow,
in rows. You
that's
also
crazy.
can see in another shot here, this guy is gesturing at the big projection screen so you could see his PowerPoint presentation. As I mentioned, this is at the Missouri State Capitol. Under the rotunda, there's the screen you can see where he's got his presentation up there. See what, can you see, can we zoom in, see what that presentation is about there?
That's
See what's on the
crazy.
screen?
Who did that? Oh my God.
How the 2020 election was stolen.
Good.
That
They're
was
allowed
their
to do that.
presentation under the rotunda today, excuse me, at the Missouri State Capitol. St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporting tonight that this event today at the Missouri State Capitol under the rotunda was attended by multiple Republican state legislators. The guy giving the how the election was stolen
That's
presentation
crazy.
was formally introduced by Republicans in Missouri today on both the floor of the House and the floor of the Senate. That was the commemoration today of the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. That's how they commemorated it at the Missouri State Capitol today. Missouri Republicans convening underneath the rotunda to give a presentation on how the election was stolen. After the violence at the Capitol
Oh,
just
Brandon
1
Tatum
year
can
ago,
go fuck himself. That's how I feel about that.
it's depending on where you look, it feels like a unified response.
Brandon
but
Tatum
we're
can
not
go
different
fuck himself.
than what we were in 1856. Like in 1856, we have an Earth One.
I don't
where
like
that was
Brandon
a
Tatum because he
galvanizing
lied
and
about me.
terrible
He
wake-up
lied
call
about me
against
for
that
no good
horror.
reason
We
because he was
also have
too
an
lazy
Earth
to
Two,
fact check
where we're
something.
not
That's
all that
why I don't like
horrified
him.
by
He
what
lied
happened to
about
Senator
me.
Charles Sumner. We're
Blatantly.
happy that Preston Brooks gave him that beating, and frankly, we want more. Today on Capitol Hill, the only Republicans who took part in the House commemoration of the January 6th attack were the two you see spot shadowed right here in the front row on the Republican side of the aisle. There's two of them. Only one of them is a member of Congress. That's Republican
Not for
Congresswoman Liz
long.
Cheney. And the other Republican in the room, in the House chamber today, is her dad, who she brought with her, former Vice President Dick Cheney. Those were the only two Republicans who
Yes,
showed up
he
today to
is.
commemorate the attack in the
Yes,
House.
he is.
The only House Republican event related to the January 6th attack today was a press conference held by two pro-Trump Republicans where they tried to propagate the plucked from the YouTube comments conspiracy theory that there was no real attack on the Capitol a year ago. It's all a hoax that was faked by the FBI. You know, just like 9/11 was an inside job and COVID is a hoax too. Incidentally, NBC News is reporting tonight that according to a top U.S. intelligence official, U.S. intelligence has been monitoring efforts by hostile foreign governments to amplify those specific claims that January 6th was a false flag, that it was really secretly the government that did it just so they could blame it on Trump supporters. Hostile foreign powers have been amplifying that, presumably because they would love to run the skin of our democracy over that particular cheese grater. They just have to tune into House Republican press conferences to do it.
Rachel, how many shows did you do about the Russian hoax? How many shows did you do about Russia stealing the election?
And you know, it's...
And you want to talk about misinformation?
It's all happening at once.
Because you had convinced me at one point that Russia had stolen the election. You specifically had convinced me
some of the
of that because you lied. Because you lied over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
This was Northampton, Massachusetts City Hall steps today. A crowd that turned out today on the anniversary
she doesn't like that.
Of the
She lives in
January
there.
6th
She
attack
lives there.
To support
Rachel
democracy
Maddow
and to
lives
stand
there
against political violence. This woman turned out in Worcester, Massachusetts, in central Massachusetts. She put this sign on the back of her Rubbermaid bin. Put on her parka and her winter gloves and her scarf. 1/6/21. Never forget, never again. I mean, it's
that's bad.
Never,
never mind. I take it back. I've had one too many beers.
One thing.
Just wearing a mask. I should have known. That should have been my
Honestly,
first clue.
That ruling from the DC District Court tonight, dude, you cannot go to Jamaica. Not today, sir. That ruling from the Chief Judge in DC District Court, that also was something today. Something to,
if that's
again, like
the
I
best
said,
you have, Rachel, for real. If that's like the best you have.
These things all happen at once.
Wearing a mask outside.
But the divide between the two sides of them feels not just gaping, but scary. I mean, Doris Kearns Goodwin had something to say today about violence and galvanization.
Never forget November 3rd.
And radicalization.
Never forget.
She had that to say today about heading off
the day our democracy was stolen. Not really YouTube, just making a joke.
She meant it as a good news story, I know, right? That history is here to help and we can and should learn from it, I know. But honestly, looking at how this unfolded over the course of today, I am ready to hear from somebody who understands these things how this ends well. Joining us now is presidential historian, Pulitzer Prize-winning author Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Of course. I thought they were going to have on John Meacham.
Leadership in Turbulent Times. Ms. Goodwin, Doris, it is really great that you were able to make time to be with us tonight. Thank you for making the time.
I don't mind Doris Kearns Goodwin, but I feel like she's going to lie.
Glad to be with you, Rachel.
Let me ask if I misconstrued the point that you were making today. I tried to sort of play it without interruption, without any internal edits, so people could hear it the way that you presented it, because it sort of knocked me off my chair a little bit. Let me just ask if I interpreted that wrong or heard it wrong.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think what you saw in the 1850s and what you're seeing right now are alternative realities, right? There, on one side in the North is seeing it, as you said, what happened to Sumner as a terrible event. The side in the South is seeing it as a glorious event. What we're seeing right now is that an election that presumably they're claiming on one side was not won, was stolen. And the truth is on the other side that it was won by Biden. You've got alternative realities now about what the insurrection was. Was it an insurrection or was it simply a bunch of tourists running around?
This is going to make me hate Doris Kearns Goodwin.
The most important thing to understand if we try to figure out where can we go from here, which is I think what you wanted to talk about, is that when Lincoln gets in 1861, he said the central idea of the struggle they were fighting, the Civil War had already started, was whether or not if a minority, and by that he meant a minority who lost an election, did not accept that they had lost an election, and they decide that they are going to break from the Union, as they did, to secede from the Union, then democracy is an absurdity. It can't work. And what are we seeing right now? But the minority
I would
that
very
lost
much
the
like
election
New Hampshire
is
to
claiming
secede
it
from the
wasn't
Union.
lost. They are having state legislatures now with the possibility to overturn the will of the people. They're having partisan people counting the votes instead of the nonpartisan volunteers.
I think if Lincoln were here now,
Those
he
ain't
would
nonpartisan
say, if that's
volunteers.
true, then democracy's an absurdity. So what do? We go for voting rights. We have to protect it. It's the most
Oh
important
my
thing.
God.
As long as I've
Doris
lived, it's the
Kearns
fight that I
Goodwin
think
is
is the most important
shilling
fight in my life. When I
for
was
this
involved as a young
absurd
girl in the
voting
March
rights
on Washington, when I sat and
fortification.
listened
That's
to
what this is.
Lyndon
This is a
Johnson's joint
fortification
session
of
of
all
Congress
future
speech where he
elections.
said,
And a
voting is not a
historian.
partisan issue. It's not a northern issue. It's
You
not
want
a
to
southern
talk
issue. It's
about
his
like
fort to get the
democracy?
Voting Rights
You are
Act
a
of 65.
historian. Your
It's
job is
not
to tell
even
the
a moral
truth.
challenge
Your
because
job
it's
is to tell the
undeniably
truth
wrong to
about what
deny your fellow
happened, and
Americans
you're
the
not
right to
even
vote.
doing that.
That's what's happening right now, and
Doris
that's the fight we
Kearns
have to fight.
Goodwin is
That's the
nothing
only
better than a
answer to
propagandist.
understanding these divisions we have right now.
Doris Kearns Goodwin is a
Doris, I was
propagandist.
struck today when you said that what you thought would happen after
Propaganda
January
arm
6th
of
is
the
that there would be a
DNC.
realignment, that there would be
That makes me so
a
sad.
recognition,
She writes
such a
wonderful
widespread
books.
recognition about things having gone so wrong on one side of our politics, that there would be a realignment, an ideological realignment of the parties. Something, if it wasn't the collapse of the Whig Party and the
There
rise
was
of the
no
Republicans,
ideological
or some analogy of
realignment.
that, at least
There
there would be
was
some other
none.
sort of change
That is a
along those lines. And
lie.
obviously,
That is a lie that
we haven't
Democrats
seen
wrote
that,
to
but
make them seem less
we have
racist.
seen the right get weird
Oh, this is
in
so
terms of its
disappointing.
devotion to its failed presidential candidate who was not able to win a second term, the driving
Oh,
out of the
just you
party
wait,
people who
Rachel.
have a message about integrity and the unity of the country and the fealty to the Constitution that would have a widespread appeal. There is a sort
Wow,
of schismatic
that's
thing happening inside the
crazy.
right that doesn't look like a party realignment.
That's
but
not
does
cool,
look like a
man.
structural
That's not
change
cool.
of some kind. I wondered if you see it that way,
Don't
and if
do that shit, guys.
is
My
something that
God.
you see, you expect to continue to evolve.
I think it's possible. I mean, I think what happened in January 6th was it was enough of an emotional reaction that you heard McConnell say that this was an attack that was provoked by the president. You heard
To be
McCarthy
fair,
say it
Tim
was an
Pool should have had a
undemocratic assault
conversation with the
on
police before this,
Constitution.
but
And you heard Republicans who were breaking away at that point. And somehow that image and that emotion was lost. And we have so many breaking news, and that's what happens today. Things are lost. That's the hope of what January 6th and the commemoration today, I think, and the select committee can do. If they can bring that story back so that there's a fundamental sense on the part of more people, and I think they're out there, the people that know it was wrong, they know what happened. If they can fill in the dots of that story, and stories are what produce a reaction in people. You know, Lincoln told so many stories, and people used to say,
now
why
this
do you
is all
tell so
making
many
me
stories?
think.
He
Hang
said,
on, let me
these
turn this
stories
down.
have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have a more of an emotional appeal than
See, this is all making me think that Doris Kearns Goodwin has just been a propagandist forever, and that may very well be true, but it makes me sad because she is a wonderful storyteller, and it makes me think that she completely understands that she is using people's emotions to lie to them about history, and that makes me really, really sad. It's like, it's so disappointing. There are so few principled people in the world.
over and over again in American history.
I think that's a really, really important point. I think a lot about the committee. I think a lot of Americans, particularly people who are horrified by what happened on January 6th, they're looking at the committee, and we keep connecting it to the Justice Department. And is there going to be accountability? And is there going to be, are people going to go to jail? And are people going to get in trouble? And are people going to repent? But as you point out, the other part of it is not about the perpetrators and the way they are treated. It is about correctly securing and telling the story of that day in a way that makes it clear.
Like, we
to the
need to make a
American
list of
people
people that we can actually
so that
trust
we
to tell the
understand
truth. And I don't
ourselves
care
in
if they're
a
left or
true,
right or center or
well-informed way,
whatever. We
and
need to
can
make a
good
list of people that we
decisions
can
about these
trust.
kinds of problems and this kinds of crisis moving forward.
I mean, think about the isolationism that we were facing in 1939 and 1940. And before Pearl Harbor, FDR was able to tell a story to the American people about why it was important to support England, who was standing alone against the Nazis in Western Europe. And he talks about
Thank you,
Lend-Lease,
Melissa. I
and he
appreciate
makes it
that.
in a
Welcome.
metaphor that you're going to, neighbor's house is on fire, you're going to lend them a hose to save their house, which will then save yours. So somehow that's what a story does. I mean, our best leaders understood how to tell stories. And I think if this committee can tell in a compelling way, they have the evidence. They have to just put it together so that fair-minded people, all you need is 5 or 10% to change where they are now. And maybe that will make the other people in the party, Republicans, say, this is where the country's going. There's already a majority that believes that this was an insurrection. There's a majority that believes the election was won, but it's got to affect the party structure. And that's what I think, that's where the hope is, that people will be influenced by something that is fair and
She's
true.
very
You can't
hopeful
just
that the
repeat a lie over
establishment is
and
going
over
to
and
take
again.
back over the
You can also
Republican Party.
repeat the
God
truth over
knows
and
they're
over again
trying, and
in
they're
a compelling
frankly
way,
winning.
and then maybe that will battle the lie that's out there.
So sharp and so important. The presidential historian and author Doris Kearns Goodwin. Doris, as I said, it's a real pleasure to have you here. I know it has been a long and busy day for you. Thank you for being here tonight.
I'm very glad. Thank you for having me.
All right. Much more ahead here tonight. Stay with us.
All right, guys. Well, while they're on commercial, let's talk about Preston Brooks, shall we? Let's talk about Preston Brooks, who Rachel Maddow wants to hold up as the most evil person ever in the history of the Senate. Preston Brooks, according to this Wikipedia entry, Brooks, a Democrat, was a strong advocate of slavery and states' rights. He is most remembered for his May 22nd, 1856 attack upon abolitionist and Republican Senator Charles Sumner, whom he nearly beat to death. So Preston Brooks, who Rachel Maddow wouldn't refer to as a Democrat, was referring to him as a Southerner. Did you guys notice that? She was referring to him as a Southerner, not a Democrat, because Abraham Lincoln was a Democrat. Or excuse me, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Oh my God. Oh, strike that. Someone's going to freaking clip that, make me look stupid. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Charles Sumner was a Republican. Preston Brooks, Democrat. All right, guys, we're going to watch a little bit more of Rachel Maddow just because we're here. Why not? Now, I do want to remind you that tomorrow I will be streaming at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on my second channel, not on this channel, on my second channel, Actively Unwoke. That's youtube.com/actively unwoke. And we are going to be watching at 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow the 2019 Democrats Socialists of America National Convention, which I am assured is amazing and hilarious in how woke it is. So please join me on Actively Unwoke. Make sure you subscribe over there. As a reminder, we are no longer doing happy hour on my main channel. We are only doing happy hour on YouTube on my second channel, which is youtube.com/actively unwoke. I want to make sure I'm welcoming people from Odyssey who are joining me right now and Rockfin. I'm on Odyssey. I'm on Rockfin. Of course, I'm on Locals. Locals is the best place on the internet. You can join my Locals at Bing, kb.locals.com. In fact, let's just real quick get a little promo up because I'm going to be all professional like. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing, you can join me on Locals as a supporter over on kb.locals.com/support. When you join as a supporter today, you're going to get access to my private collection of never before seen January 6 videos, because if you're new to my channel, I was at the Capitol on January 6th. You can actually go back to my live streams on January 6th and 7th and 8th and probably many days after that, where I talked about the experience. I have been interviewed by the FBI. I didn't get arrested, thank God. But you can see some of my private videos from the Capitol by becoming a local supporter. You can do that at $5 a month. You can do it at $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. Or you can make a one-time gift. And I greatly appreciate the support. It is the thing that helps it make it possible to do the work that I'm doing. Now, also as a reminder, because we had Seth Weathers from bringammo.com on the channel tonight, Seth has been nice enough to extend a promo code to you guys for tonight only. You can go to bringammo.com and use the promo code Carlin, just my first name, and you get 20% off your whole order. You can get so much cool stuff, man. You can get all this Let's Go Brandon stuff. You can get this Fauci clown nose. I have this t-shirt. This one's pretty rad. I love this t-shirt. It's one of my favorites. I get so many compliments on the Fauci lied shirt. I legitimately do wear Bring Ammo stuff like all the time. I love the quality of their product. You guys may remember them as being the people who made this awesome Let's Go Brandon wrapping paper. They come out with new stuff all the time. I only shill for things that I actually like and that I actually buy. And so it's a great time if you want to stock up. 20% off your whole order using the promo code Carlin tonight on bringammo.com, the most base site on the internet. All right, looks like it's coming back. So let's Let's get it up. Let's get it up. We'll do this for a little bit while longer. And we'll see how it goes. Guys, please mount that like button if you haven't already. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. I stream on my main channel on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 5 p.m. Except for today, I'm doing it a little bit later because I had to get a tattoo earlier. And so I'm doing it a little bit later. We're doing MSNBC Watch Party. All right, let's see what's going on.
Recommit.
Oh, they're just showing the speeches.
Members
Oh, here
of the House
she
of
is. All right.
Representatives speaking today, recounting the moment a year ago today when the violent mob of Trump supporters breached the Capitol. Dozens of members of Congress and senators spoke about that moment today. It's also worth remembering the journalists who were part of that day, those moments.
Oh, the
those first
poor
moments,
journalists, the poor
that those senators and members of
abused,
Congress were talking about today
oppressed
were also, of course,
journalists.
documented by journalists in the room at the time. That is part of why it is such a vivid part of our nation's history. Speaking in the United States Senate today, this was New Jersey Senator Cory Booker.
Oh, God, Cory.
All along our retreat.
He's going to cry. He's going to cry.
That ignominious moment, all along that retreat, we saw officers injured. I eventually walked and worked my way to my office. And I will never forget this moment as long as I live. I feel not just my own pain, but I thought immediately of my dad.
He's going to cry. His voice is
and
shaking.
I felt the pain of my ancestors because when I turned on that
the pain of
screen,
my
the
ancestors.
very first thing I saw was the Confederate flag. That flag
Fed.
in so many communities in this country.
78% of you thought he was a Fed.
Carried by those
but please, guys,
who took
like,
democratically
honestly,
elected officials,
stop bringing
blacks
goddamn
in
Confederate
southern
flags
states,
to rallies
ripped them from
for
their
real.
offices, dragged
Because it's
judges
used like
into
this
the
every
street,
single goddamn
beat
time.
them,
There were only like
lynched
2
them.
Confederate
That was their
flags in all of
flag.
January 6th.
This
Of course,
is
they
not
found
about
one.
a day.
He's gonna cry. He's gonna cry. He's gonna cry.
This was not one day. It was not one moment. It is a part of our story.
Cry. Cory Booker just
Joining
cried.
us now is New Jersey Senator Cory Booker.
Cory
Booker
Booker cried.
speaking there today in the
Look,
Senate
he's
chamber.
gonna cry
Senator
again.
Booker,
Cory
thank you
Booker's
so
gonna
much
cry
for your
again.
time
Look at
tonight.
him.
Thank you, Rachel. It's good to be on with you.
Let me ask you, I feel like I've turned to you often, Senator, sort of at moments of sort of where we need moral focus. What conversation do you hope we will be able to have a year from now on the 2nd anniversary of the January 6th attack?
Look at the brow.
That we
Look at the
cannot
brow.
have now. What sort of progress do you think we can make as a country in the year ahead, given what has happened to us in the year behind?
Well, let me first just really push the point that if we just see this as an isolated incident, as one day that we mark every year and forget that this is a stream of our nation's history where violent forces seeking to stop democracy with authoritarian bents have been a long part of our country's history. And in fact, every step we've tried to take forward has been met with violence. Remember, we talk about the suffragettes and their marches, but they were beaten, they were tortured. We talk about the efforts for voting rights. John Lewis, you can go through the number of people that were beaten. And those early elected officials, and they're the first senator in the United States Senate that was black. It was during Reconstruction when blacks had unfettered access to voting. Well, that was met with violence. Even now, since January 6th, the violent threats on officials in our country, for federal judges, it's gone up threefold. For members of Congress, the threats have gone up twofold. For election officials, independent election officials, Reuters has documented hundreds and hundreds of violent threats. You take a guy like Al Schmidt, Republican from Pennsylvania, who dared to say that the election was just and fair, threatened. They singled out his children to threaten to murder them. So we have to understand that we're actually a unique, amazing country, but we see across the planet, from Europe to South America, authoritarian forces pushing back on democracy, undermining democracy, and democracy is on its retreat from Hungary to Turkey. You see the forces, the demagogic forces we saw pushing back on democracy. So the positive, Rachel, is clear. Every dark chapter of our history was, as the great historian you had on, an ignition point. King called the violence. He goes, what I'm worried about today, we have to repent for is not the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, but the appalling silence and inaction of the good people. The hope I have, the story that I have as this thread continues, and you see it in voter suppression.
He's not
people
crying
trying
anymore.
to
He tells an
gerrymander,
act
trying to
now because
undermine
he's like, he's
fair
lost
and
his
free
face.
democracy.
He's lost the furrow brow.
What I
He
hope
like
now
sat
is
down.
that this
If
is an
I have a
admission
conversation
point
with
that
Stabber, he
more
sat down. He's like,
people understand that this is not just about
and now he's
pointing
laughing.
fingers of contempt
Actor.
at otherizing people,
Artist.
that this is them. No, this is not about finding blame. It's about us as Americans taking this moment, taking this day, and not just commemorating it, but recognizing it and accepting responsibility that we have to make the change.
In terms of the political nature of the violence that the country faced a year ago, I have found myself sort of struggling today with whether or not that violence is political or whether
now
it
he's
is the
crying
end of
again.
politics.
Now he's crying again.
Right? You've talked about
like,
authoritarian movements. I see the portrait of Gandhi behind you, Senator, and I know about your commitment, your spiritual commitment to nonviolence, as well as your strategic commitment to nonviolence. When President Biden today talked about a dagger being held to the throat of America, he was talking about people trying to achieve power through force rather than through politics.
The lip is quivering.
And I find myself struggling today with the kind of history that you've talked about, where our politics has often bled into violence and where commitments to nonviolence have often just been met with more violence. I mean, finding a way out of this does mean learning from history, but I also think it means being able to name the moment that we are in.
When was the last time that Rachel Maddow talked about the rioting of BLM? Did Rachel Maddow even report on BLM seizing the White House?
Non-political, and that is just about force.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We need to name
How
what's
much
going
you want to
on
bet that
right
Rachel
now. It's
Maddow
not
has never
over.
done a
Last
single
year,
show
an event
about
when
the
they
violence
left
of
the Capitol,
Antifa and
it wasn't
BLM?
the end. There is a strong movement in this country to undermine our democracy, and it is perilous. Whether it is taking away independent election officials and trying to shift decisions on which electors you send to the state away from nonpartisan individuals like we're seeing in places like Georgia and put it back in a partisan legislature. So that when the president calls this time, as he did to an independent election official, and tries to pressure them, well, we see how many of my colleagues and others have been folding to that pressure. That's about undermining our democracy. The
He
racial
acts as
elements
though
of
they
this
don't
are
have
clear.
minds of their own.
How can we have a nation? I really had the naivete as a child listening to the stories of my parents and grandparents about the fear and the violence around trying to vote, about the two different voting systems. But now we live in a country where predominantly Black counties, areas in Georgia, the weight to vote, the average weight to vote in predominantly Black communities, as documented by Reuters and Brennan, is about almost an hour, about 51 minutes. For a white voter,
That's because of
it's 6
incompetence.
minutes. Think about that for a second. You have places, do we want to live in a country where a Black person has to wait?
I wonder if
7,
Cory
8
Booker
times
thinks
longer
that
to vote?
vaccine
And
mandates are
there's some
systemic
areas in
racism.
America like Texas.
I wonder
where
if Cory
in
Booker has
minority
ever called
communities, the
out
wait
that
to vote is
vaccine
7, 8 hours. That's
mandates
a day's work. Are we
disproportionately
really saying
affect
that
African
we're
Americans.
going to tolerate a country where people have to be able to afford to give up hours of work or taking care of their children? That's America today. If you don't think our democracy is in peril by all these threats on voting officials, all of these voter suppression laws that are creating such distinctly different experiences in voting in America, then if you are passive and sitting on the sideline at this moment and not taking some responsibility to say, I got to do something different, like generations before who faced dark moments, then you are part of the problem. And so this is why one of the best things about
He is probably pinching himself.
that dark day for me was seeing how many ordinary people rose to the occasion, whether it was staffers making sure we protected those boxes that were sitting in the wells of the Senate, whether it's people like Eugene Goodman, who, I'm telling you, if he did not lead the mob away from the Senate chamber, someone would have got killed. Most likely it would have been the people in the mob that would have gotten killed.
Definitely not irresponsible. Someone did get killed, Corey. Her name was Ashley Babbitt. Someone did get killed.
When moments like that,
as
look
it
for the
turns
helpers.
out,
Well,
Cory Booker probably
I'm
doesn't even
hoping
know
that
that.
people look to themselves and say that I need to be a helper, because January 6th may have ended last year, but the crisis of violence and the threats to our democracy are persisting, and we are not immune to what is happening around this planet in other areas where democracies are being worn down or eroding, and democratic principles and democratic ideals are falling to demagoguery and leaders who have authoritarian aims.
Senator Cory Booker from the great state of New Jersey. Senator, thanks for being with us tonight. I know it's been an intense day and an emotional day today. It means a lot to me that you were here tonight. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rachel.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
All right, guys. I'm going to wrap it up for the night because it's almost 10 o'clock and I've been streaming for a while now and I've had a big day. I got a tattoo today. Look at it. It's red. It's so pretty. The middle isn't done yet. We have another session to go on this particular part of my tattoo, and then we get to move on to other parts of my tattoo. But guys, thank you for joining me for the stream tonight. I hope I will see you all on my second channel tomorrow, Actively Unwoke. Again, the link is in the description below. If you have not subscribed, we're going to be doing an amazing happy hour. Our first happy hour of 2022. It's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'm really looking forward to it. And if you haven't already, please join my locals. You don't have to pay to become a member if you don't want to. You can join for free at kb.locals.com. But if you do want to support the work I'm doing, there's lots of ways you can do that. You can subscribe to this channel. You can mount the like button. You can share it out with your friends and family. No, that's not a shirt sleeve. That is a tattoo that I literally just got this afternoon. It's burning a little bit. This is gonna be a painful one to heal. It was painful to get. I'll tell you what. There are times I had a tattoo, I was like, man, but it looks so good. It's so hot. It's gonna be a big, bright, beautiful sun. I love it. Guys, the best way you can support my channel is by becoming a member on my locals, a supporter in my locals. You get access to all sorts of exclusive perks when you get that. You get access to 2 Zoom calls a week, every single week with me. I spend about 6 hours every week on Zoom with my locals. On Saturday at 3 p.m., we are doing a bitch craft, which is basically you can come into Zoom and bring a craft. It could be knitting, it could be crochet, it could be quilting, it could be sewing, it could be drawing. It could be folding laundry. You can come and do whatever you want. It's going to be an open time for us to hang out and chat and catch up. That's going to be Saturday at 3 p.m. for my local supporters only. You can become a supporter at just $5 a month. You can become a supporter at $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can make a one-time gift as well. And I have the best community on all of locals. I don't have the biggest community on all of locals, but I do have the best community. And you're going to interact with all of them when you become a member. Guys, happy Insurrection Day. We made it. All right, I'm going to bounce out. Thank you guys for spending some time with me. And I will see you tomorrow on Actively Unwoke.